So welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we have an episode entitled Cersei and the Valonqar. We're going to be reviewing the life of Cersei Lannister, as well as going over some of the theories regarding who is the Valonqar and the younger, more beautiful one who will cast her down. My name is Shaggydog, Scott in real life, and I'm joined from the forums by It Rhymes with Sleek.
Hey, It Rhymes with Sleek on the forums, Jack in real life.
Also Dark Sister, 24.
Hi, Dark Sister 24 on the forums, Claire in real life.
Sir Dinner Roll.
Hey, Sir Dinnerol on the forums, Paul in real life.
And the younger, more beautiful blue-eyed queen.
Oh my gosh. Blue-eyed queen on the forums, Casey in real life.
Is this anyone's first podcast? It's not, is it?
Paul was on my podcast yesterday, but I don't know if yours is going to be out before mine, but I don't know if you want to do anything or not.
Like, we didn't do the whole, like, Song of Ice and Fire favorite character and stuff. We did Doctor Who stuff instead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you pay Sir Patrick?
I have not, and I think he might be coming to break my kneecaps in case I don't give him his money. But, yeah, I got into the books through the show, and I got into the show through Star Wars The Old Republic, which is just a very odd thing. Yeah, someone introduced me to the show on there, and then I started watching the show. I'm like, hey, this isn't too bad. And then I read the books. I'm like, holy shit, these books are great. I can't wait for the next seasons. And slowly the seasons have been ripping out my fingernails like Ramsay Snow. So my favorite character to read is Davos, because the way he just comes at everything, I can probably more relate to what he sees than the other Highborn. But my favorite character just in general is Strong Belwas, because it's Strong Belwas.
Okay, before we get started, does anybody have a shout-out they want to give to anybody?
Shout out to Beavers.
Oh my.
Shout out to Beavers.
It needs to end.
I do actually have a shout-out I have to give to Brum Riverlander from the forums, and also Kevin Harris, who posted on Facebook, and they both pointed out in the last podcast where I did the Tyrek theory that Martin Lannister is still alive, and I had said he was killed by Lord Karkstark. He was actually being exchanged for Robert Glover and delivered to the Lannisters by Sir Rolf Spicer, Jane Westerling's uncle. So I got that one wrong, but I fully expect him to die in the next book. So you're a marked man, Martin Lannister. Enjoy your short life while it lasts.
He's a kid. Well, you got like a vendetta against him.
Because I want my theory to be right, okay? That's really it. Speaking of theories, the last one, when Fire and Bud asked what happens to Varys' little birds when they grow up, Amanda Barber on YouTube replied, tinfoil time. The Silent Sisters are Varys' little birds grown up. Ooh. I'm on board with that one. You can't really break your vow of silence if you physically can't break your vow of silence. I like that one. What are your just general thoughts on Cersei, overall? Good character, bad character, tragic victim, evil villainess?
I don't like her. I feel like there's a lot of problems with her. I feel like she, specifically with Tommen, just doesn't handle him well towards the end of seeing her in her point of view chapters. But I feel like she is very much a product of being formed into this type of person from society and from Tywin and from Robert Baratheon. So I feel like she's had a lot that has made her this way that may have not been solely from just being herself. But I also feel like there's a lot of really strong women in this world that have taken their adverse early life experiences and made them into something better, whereas she's just become a little bit nuts.
So you think she's kind of a product of the environment she kind of grew up in, as opposed to somebody who sort of broke the mold or broke the kind of cycle?
Knowing that, I still don't like her.
All right.
I mean, I got to second Casey on the fact that she could have been changed over time, in her earlier developmental years, but at this point she's kind of like the deluded villainess who thinks she's all that and know how smart she is. I just cannot wait for when maybe the Iron Bank comes back to default on a few loans.
Jack, do you have any opinion?
Cersei's a deluded bitch. That's my opinion.
All right. Well, that's a summary.
We got the two polar opposites going.
Like, oh yeah, she could be changed. Nah, she's a bitch.
I do want to say, though, I feel like sometimes my opinion of Cersei gets a little bit muddled from the show. Like, you don't feel any sympathy until book 4, whereas, like, in show, I feel like you get that sympathy, like, right off the bat a little bit.
Okay.
Or, well, within the first season.
Claire, thoughts on Cersei?
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Cersei. One minute I really love her because she is one of the stronger female characters in the whole series, but then on the other hand, she just really, really annoys me. She's just stupid.
Agreed.
Yeah, she does seem to set up a lot of her own problems or undermine her own goals at some points along the way. Okay, so we're going to be taking a linear approach to Cersei's life. Born in 266 AC at Casterly Rock to Tywin Lannister and Lady Joanna Lannister, she's the first of the two twins born literally moments apart. Cersei says to Eddard in Game of Thrones, Jaime and I are more than brother and sister. We are one person in two bodies. We shared a womb together. He came into this world holding onto my foot. Our old maester said, later on in 272, after they've grown up a little bit, they get presented before King Aerys II while Tywin is still hand of the king. At the great anniversary tourney of 272 AC, held to commemorate Aerys' 10th year upon the Iron Throne, Joanna Lannister brought her 6-year-old twins Jaime and Cersei from Casterly Rock to present before the court. The king, very much in his cups, asked if her giving suck to them had, quote, ruined your breasts, which were so high and proud. This question greatly amused Lord Tywin's rivals, who were always pleased to see the hand slighted or made mock of, but Lady Joanna was humiliated. Tywin actually attempted to return his chain of office the next morning, but was refused by the king. Do you guys think this sort of impacted Cersei's life at all, or her worldview at her young age?
I mean, she was just 6 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
when she was put in front of, like, Aerys, he wasn't really mad, he was just kind of a dick. It might just be the fact that since she's, like, Tywin Lannister's daughter, she gets, like, this boost of genetic pride in her that just doesn't really go away.
I also wonder how much she knew about this. I know that she knows about it later on, but how much does she know at at that present time? What exactly was going on between Tywin, Joanna, and King Aerys?
That's a good point.
I feel like at least Joanna in this case would kind of hide that fact from her. My impression of her is that she's pretty, she's nice, she softened Tywin a lot, so I feel like she would have taken a softer approach to it, whereas, maybe after she died, Tywin was like, you ruined everything because they wouldn't accept you, and...
With this, I feel like Tywin wouldn't have really told her about kind of how Aerys made a fool of him, because it never really sounds like Tywin is keen on people who make fun of him, and doesn't really like to mention that people can sometimes make fun of him. I think maybe it comes later, after Aerys turns down the marriage proposal to Rhaegar, that really comes into play, of maybe how Cersei may have failed Tywin, or any other way, actually.
That's a good point. Do you think it kind of sets sort of the stage where it seems like a lot of Cersei's character or her self-confidence or her sense of self-worth is based on kind of superficial things like her looks, her beauty, and how people perceive her? Do you think that maybe had some sort of an influencing role in her development?
I think yes, definitely. When we see her later on walking the walk of shame, she realizes that she's now no longer beautiful and in front of all those people and so vulnerable, and she's only really thinking about her appearances, where and I feel like that comes from this type of thing where she's been constantly judged on her beauty and thinking that she can do anything because of it, because of people saying it.
Yeah, and I think when you're being paraded around in front of the high society of the entire land, you kind of have this inner struggle to kind of keep up appearances, because you just kind of develop that in childhood where you must look perfect for your parents or the people around them.
And even in real life, you get kids who are, girls are constantly called, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, and then guys will usually get complimented on, oh, look at him run, or look at him be so smart. So it's just gender differences in general are making her this way, which isn't a good thing. But, yeah.
Well, we see later that she's not a good person, so of course it's not really a good thing.
Okay, well, let's move on. A little later on, Tyrion is born in 273 AC. As a result of his birth, Joanna Lannister dies in childbirth. Cersei is about 7 or 8 years old at this point, and it seems that she'd taken an early disgust and hatred towards Tyrion early on. Oberyn Martell relates the following to Tyrion in A Storm of Swords. When I commented that you seemed a poor sort of monster, your sister said, "He killed my mother, and twisted your little cock so hard I thought she was like to pull it off. You shrieked, but it was only when your brother Jaime said, 'Leave him be, you're hurting him,' that Cersei let go of you. It doesn't matter," she told us. "Everyone says he's like to die soon. He shouldn't even have lived this long." Do you think that the fact that Tyrion is, sort of hideous and ugly by comparison, make him an easy scapegoat for Cersei?
Oh, totally. But,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you could put so much... I could kind of see where she's coming from. I mean, it was through his birth that she lost her mom, who I think could have been one of the only redeeming factors in her developmental years, but he's also just god-awful ugly, and makes you really want to twist his cock, I guess? I don't know.
Kinky.
Oh,
No.
Oh God.
She views Tyrion as the thing that killed her mother, and I think it makes it a little bit easier for her to hate on him because he is deformed and stuff, and it's like, oh, he's probably gonna die. Why hasn't he died yet? Like, she's getting angrier and angrier about it. And I feel like Jaime here is a bit more sympathetic because he still feels like Tyrion is his brother, is a person, whereas Cersei thinks it's just this monster that's killed her mother. And I also think that Joanna probably would have been a really good influence for Cersei later on. It's a shame that she died so soon.
This is why I think that Cersei's not a redeemable character. Because you'd think as she grew up that she would grow out of that mentality and she'd realize, it wasn't Tyrion who literally killed her mom. But she never does. She just keeps that grudge her whole life from when she was like 7. I don't think she's really a person to change much.
Well, Tywin's also fostered that hate. Like, Tywin hates Tyrion as well, and I feel like that has a lot to do with it. Cersei seems to want to be Tywin at points. She wants to make him proud, and she continues to hate Tyrion because of that.
Because you can see, like, the people who kind of build up Tyrion kind of get a bit of a smackdown from Tywin. Like, Girion, he, like, cheers on Tyrion, and he's his favorite uncle. But Tywin's like, I'm having none of that. Just seems in general those two don't get along. Meanwhile, you could see Cersei trying to get into Tywin's good graces. She would completely just kind of destroy Tyrion with just barbs and constant insults just to maybe gain Daddy's favor.
Tywin is cold to Tyrion in public. Like, he's not loving to Tyrion in public, but he doesn't openly hate him in public. I don't think Cersei would have seen any of the conversations where Tywin's really railing on Tyrion. And she would figure out from her dad being cold that he doesn't like Tyrion very much. I don't know, she doesn't follow his example in that. She's openly hateful towards him.
Do you think that situation might have changed if Joanna had lived? Or do you think that was just how it was going to be because, Tyrion's, not normal and he's not like the rest of them? Or do you think Joanna would have had like a different influence and changed fundamentally the person Cersei turned out to be instead of following Tywin's example and sort of his lead?
I don't know how Joanna would have reacted to Tyrion. Maybe she would have hated him too because he's a dwarf, Yeah,
I was going to say it depends completely on how Joanna would have loved or hated Tyrion. Personally, I think that she would have loved him, but we don't know exactly. So I think it depends on that. I feel like part of the reason Tywin and Cersei hate Tyrion so much is really because Joanna died, not because he's deformed per se.
Cersei would also, regardless of whether Joanna lived or not, she's like really beautiful, and Jaime is really beautiful too, and they both kind of define themselves by their beauty. So I think no matter whether their mom is alive or not, they'd be defining themselves around looks, and then when they have an ugly brother, they're going to naturally not like him because they're looking at everything in terms of beauty.
I don't think Jaime defines himself on his looks, at least not early on. I mean, he certainly seems to define himself on his ability with a sword. So I suppose if you could look at it like that, they may be looking at it as, well, Tyrion is obviously not able to be a real threat on the battlefield or phenomenally handsome, so maybe it's more of he doesn't have anything to contribute to the family and the family success. Is that a possibility?
I think Jaime's smarter than that. I think he's smart enough to realize that Tyrion's valuable because of his wits. But I was talking just about Cersei, how she has nothing to identify her. She's not a great swordsman, so she has to entirely value herself based on her looks, basically.
Mm.
I think there's even like a whole section where she talks about how when they became a certain age, they gave Jaime a sword and they made her stay inside and do whatever women do. And she hated that just because he had a dick. It meant that he could go sword fight and she couldn't.
Thing is, that point where I kind of see Cersei could have been mildly redeemable, because it just makes me kind of picture Arya in the same position, wanting to play with swords, and if Tywin had maybe been more like Ned in that regard, to maybe indulge his daughter a little bit with her interests, that maybe she could have ended up a little bit better, or she could have just been just as arrogant with Jaime as he is with his combat prowess.
Well, if you look at the ways that Arya and Cersei deal with it differently, Arya's method is to rebel, and I think whether Ned was like Tywin or not, that Arya would keep rebelling. That's just her nature. But Cersei's more of a person to just harbor a grudge about it, and that's her way of dealing with a lot of stuff, is just holding horrible, decades-long grudges.
Yeah.
Okay, well, regardless, it leaves Tywin as her only parent. I think we get actually some insight as to how Cersei recalls him after he passes away during his wake. And from A Feast of Crows, we have this quote. That half-smile made Lord Tywin seem less fearful somehow. That and the fact that his eyes were closed. Her father's eyes had always been unsettling, pale green, almost luminous, fleckled with gold. His eyes could see inside you. You could see how weak and worthless and ugly you were down deep. When he looked at you, you knew. Is that really Tywin, like, looking down on his children or his child like that? Or is that more or less him looking at her and her just realizing that, oh no, Dad knows exactly how I'm not living up to expectation?
I would definitely say it's kind of more with Cersei, how deep down she knows she's flawed, and it seems like her father's kind of skeptical gazes could bring that out somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But it does also kind of have a certain effect with everyone else. Maybe they don't realize how deep down bad they are when he gazes at them, but they definitely feel a bit unnerved. It's when they talk about his eyes and stuff that I kind of also start to compare him a bit with Roose Bolton, where both their gazes are just... It's just a gaze, but it is very... it can beat you down really quick.
Yeah, they have that kind of commanding presence where they can kind of look at you from across the room and you know something's up.
I wouldn't mind seeing a staring contest between Roose Bolton and Tywin Lannister to see who wins.
Oh my god.
The world just blows up instead.
The other thing that makes me think Tyrion is definitely Tywin's son is that Jaime and Cersei are never described as their eyes being particularly unnerving, but maybe it's just because of his eye colors. But Tyrion is always... George is always writing about Tyrion's eyes unnerving people, too.
That's a good point.
And this is a good question. Does Tywin actually really love or care for his children, or does he just look at them as additional pieces to be, used and manipulated in furthering his house's goals in the game?
I think that he wants his legacy to remain. He's the one that changed House Lannister from being a joke to being a really powerful house, and he wants his children to want the same, I think, because he's seen his dad getting walked over all the time and stuff.
I don't think Tywin really sees his children as his children. I think he sees them more as the next step of House Lannister. He's definitely going to take more of a commanding attitude toward them than a actual father attitude towards them. So it is true, because Tywin's just brought back House Lannister from being the joke of the Westerlands. He looks around at his siblings. He looks at Kevin, who's kind of a yes man in a way. He looks at Tyget, who's just kind of bitter about his successes. And then he looks at Girion, who's just Tytos Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, who's just I'm gonna go sail on a boat. And fuck, and then
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat, now I'm dead. But Yeah, I definitely feel that Tywin is more concerned with legacy than his actual children.
I think also that Cersei struggles with like the dissonance of constantly wanting to prove to her dad that she's like the best child that he has and that she's doing everything that he wants her to do, but she also realizes that she wants things, and I think that we kind of see that come into play towards the end with her POVs. But I feel like that's kind of why she's a little bit crazy, because she's just constantly struggling on like what she wants and what he wants and being pulled here and there. And it bites her in the butt because I don't want to say mistakes, but she kind of falls into what she wants a little bit more.
What? Cersei make mistakes? No, couldn't be.
Never.
Not like we have an entire thread about that, but...
Yeah. Originally, I would say that Tywin does love his kids, but then I think back to Tyrion's wife and what happened with her, and that proves that Tywin doesn't love Tyrion, I would say, because that's... you could say harsh discipline, but that seems just overly abusive. He also makes Jaime complicit to that, which is scarring for Jaime a little bit too. So I don't think he ever makes many decisions with his children's well-being in mind. He wants to make sure that they propagate the dynasty, but beyond that, I don't think he does care very much about his kids.
Claire, any thoughts?
Pretty much the same. If anything, I feel like it would have been Joanna who would have been the more caring parent. He cares for them in the sense that he cares about what they do and how it affects him and how it makes him look, but I don't think he really truly cares for him in the way that a parent should.
So basically they're mostly pieces to be used, and
Yeah.
how they affect the overall strategy of his little chess game is more important than their individual desires.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. In 276, Cersei, who is 10 years old at the time, goes along with her friends Melara Heatherspoon and Jane Farman, and they visit the woods witch Maggie the Frog to get their futures told to them. And we get this in a sort of dream flashback sequence in A Feast for Crows. The sorceress was sleeping in the dream, as once she slept in life. "Leave her be," the queen wanted to cry out, "you little fools, never wake a sleeping sorceress." Without a tongue, she could only watch as the girl threw off her cloak, kicked the witch's bed, and said, "Wake up, we want our futures told." When Maggie the Frog opened her eyes, Jane Farman gave a frightened squeak and fled the tent, plunging headlong back into the night. Plump, stupid, timid little Jane, pasty-faced and fat and scared of every shadow. She was the wise one, though. Jane lived on Far Isle still. She had married one of her lord brother's bannermen and whelped a dozen children. Before I keep going with this, by comparison, that Jane seems to have escaped like a horrific future that both Cersei and Melara got. Does this sort of reinforce the idea that, maybe she's not cursed, or that Cersei is cursed, and that somehow Jane escaped it?
I feel like Jane just kind of sounds like the person who's just not very imposing at all. When you're confronted with a crazy old lady whose bed you just kicked, I could pretty much see why Jane would just be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm out of here. Going back to my island.
Isn't Far Isle the one that's like way the hell out to the west, like past the Iron Islands?
Oh no, that's the Lonely Light, and they're sworn to House Greyjoy. Fair Isle is the island that's like right next to the Westerlands.
Oh, Fair Isle, okay.
Fair Isle, yeah. The last name is Farman, but they rule Fair Isle.
Huh.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the futures that they asked to see. Probably not what they were hoping to get at all. So first, Maggie has them cut themselves, and then she sucks the blood from their cuts, and then she lets them ask questions, and Cersei goes first. 3 questions you may ask, the crone said once she had her drink. You will not like my answers. Ask or be gone with you. When will I wed the prince, she asked. Never. You will wed the king. For years after, she took those words to mean that she would marry Rhaegar until after his father Aerys had died. I will be queen, though? Asked the younger her. Aye, malice gleamed in Maggie's yellow eyes. Queen you shall be, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. Anger flashed across the child's face. If she tries, I will have my brother kill her. Even then she would not stop, willful child as she was. She had one more question due her, one more glimpse into her life to come. Will the king and I have children? She asked. Oh, aye, 6 and 10 for him, and 3 for you. That made no sense to Cersei. Her thumb was throbbing where she'd cut it, and her blood was dripping on the carpet. How could that be? She wanted to ask, but she was done with her questions. The old woman was not done with her, however. Gold shall be their crowns, and gold their shrouds, she said. And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. What is a Valonqar? Some monster? The golden girl did not like that foretelling. You're a liar and a warty frog and a smelly old savage, and I don't believe a word of what you say. Come away, Melara. She's not worth hearing. And actually, all things considered, what Melara gets for telling Cersei might as well consider herself almost lucky. I get 3 questions too, her friend insisted. When Cersei tugged upon her arm, she wriggled free and turned back to the crone. Will I marry Jaime? She blurted out. You stupid girl, the queen thought, angry even now. Jaime doesn't even know you're alive. Back then, her brother lived only for swords, dogs, and horses, and for her, his twin. Not Jaime nor any other man, Maggie said. Worms will have your maidenhead. Your death is here tonight, little one. Can you smell her breath? She is very close. And Melara actually never gets to ask any other questions, and because Cersei throws a potion into Maggie's face and they flee the tent. And at some point, they agree to swear silence about it. From A Feast for Crows, Melara said that if we never spoke about the prophecies, we would forget them. She said that a forgotten prophecy couldn't come true. And then shortly after this, Melara dies by drowning in a well. And it's kind of implied that Cersei tossed her down there. She could still hear Melara Heatherspoon insisting that if they never spoke about the prophecies, they would not come true. She was not so silent in the well, though. She screamed and shouted. Do we think Cersei killed Melara? Or let her drown? Or was it like an actual accident?
I think she let her
drown.
There.
Okay, let's try this one at a time.
I think she let her drown. I think it was an accident that probably caused her to kind of fall in the well, but I definitely think Cersei let her drown and didn't help her.
So didn't go for help and just, you're down the well, I guess.
Yeah.
Where's Lassie when you need him?
The hound wasn't around yet.
I think that it might have been out of rage. Like, Cersei was already kind of enraged by all the things that Maggie the Frog said, and then Melara maybe have said something, and then it just happened, and that's why we don't get that much information on it, because she doesn't really remember it. I think it's like crime of passion or whatever. That's what it's called. It's just like when you get like really angry and like you kind of forget everything, and you just do, and then you don't, and then you realize that what you did later on.
I do kind of feel that Cersei probably had something to do with Melara's death, because she heard Melara yelling and screaming in the well.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like Cersei wouldn't be too happy when Melara asks, "Oh, will I marry Jaime?" Because Cersei's already looking at that fine twin body and saying, I want to get me some of that. So I kind of feel like Melara was just kind of getting in Cersei's way and just kind of annoying Cersei. So Cersei just decided, hey, you should go in the well. Let me help you with that.
I don't know. I have one thought on that. Like, if you think that forgetting, what just happened in the prophecy and the things you were just told, killing somebody, like by drowning them, seems like a really surefire way to make sure that you remember everything that just happened to you. So, I mean, it seems like, that's something that you're never, ever going to forget, ever. So I kind of have a hard time thinking that Cersei actually would do it. We don't really see her actually physically killing anyone herself at all. I mean, I'm not talking about, ordering the death of somebody else or, having somebody else do her dirty work for her. And it kind of makes me wonder, if she really has it in her to go through with it. What do you think? Do you guys think she could possibly do that?
She's crazy enough to.
Again, I think
she's crazy.
I think the rage thing, I think that she was just so angry that it just happened and she wasn't thinking.
Like possible jealousy over Melara wanting to marry Jaime, possibly?
Yeah, or just, like, in general, like, that plus her anger over the entire experience of not having the prophecy she wanted.
I don't know. I don't think that the prophecy got to her at the time enough to... Later, it definitely got to her. But that night, I don't know if she was moved enough by it to go murder somebody.
Yeah, I suppose if Melara had lived, that would sort of undo the prophecy a little bit.
Do we know if Cersei ever told anybody else about the whole Maggie the Frog thing and the prophecies? Because I was just thinking if she told, like, her father or something, and then who knows?
She does not tell anyone about the prophecy until later on when she mentions it to Qyburn, because she's trying to find a way to break the curse, so to speak.
What if
okay.
it would be wonderfully poetic? So you're saying that she killed her friend by pushing her down the well, which fulfills one part of the prophecy. What if the whole prophecy is just fulfilled by her? Like, you could say that Robert having all those bastards was because she was being so bad to him, and you could say that, I don't know, her raising Joffrey incorrectly was responsible for Joffrey's death.
I feel like her raising Joffrey in general was worth Joffrey's death.
Yeah. What if it all turns out to be her fault, and if she had done nothing, none of it would have happened?
Yeah, there is some self-fulfillingness of it. I mean, like, there's a lot more to prophecies coming true. I think some things are, like, put into place, if you will, but that she's ultimately making them all, like, definitely happen.
When she was married to Robert, she had other kids by Robert that she ended up, like, aborting.
Well,
so even if she had one of those kids, that would have done away with the prophecy.
Is that definite?
She did admit to Ned in the scene where he confronts her in the Godswood at King's Landing that Robert at one point did get her with child, but it was aborted, that Jaime found a woman to cleanse her. So yes, that is a definite. Okay. But we don't know if she was ever pregnant by Robert any other time.
So if she had gone through with that pregnancy and it didn't kill her or anything, that would have broken the prophecy. She has every opportunity to, but it's all her fault, I think.
Yeah.
Could be. There is some aspects of it to self-fulfillment, but I mean, as far as, like, you know, the number of children Robert has, that's not on her. I mean, come on, that's Robert just being lecherous and, you know, sleeping around. That's not something I think you can blame on her.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because there's so much like that, like Lyanna running away. That's who he was betrothed to. He was just kind of obsessed with, like, having her, and he tries to make that anger better by having sex with tons of different women. But I mean,
not a bad strategy. There are worse ways to go about it.
Well, you know, he's drunk all the time. He has sex with a lot of different people. He's
I'm
erratic.
trying to see the downside of this.
Stop it.
He's living the dream.
All right, well, let's move on. Cersei goes to King's Landing at age 12, and Tywin basically is trying to set up an arrangement between her and Rhaegar through the Mad King. Jaime gets knighted at age 15, campaigning against the Kingswood Brotherhood. Cersei later convinces Jaime to join the Kingsguard so they can remain close, and she also seduces him as well. Tywin resigns his position as Hand of the King and returns to Casterly Rock with Cersei, which actually leaves Jaime in King's Landing in service to the Mad King. And then Robert's Rebellion occurs in 282, and then we move on to 284 after the rebellion, where Cersei weds Robert, which is basically just a politically arranged marriage. It wasn't, you know, anything out of love or anything like that. We do get a couple of interesting quotes from the books that I really think just meant this whole thing was doomed from the beginning, in my opinion. Robert says to Ned at the Tourney of the Hand, quote, "And Cersei, I have Jon Arryn to thank for her. I had no wish to marry after Lyanna was taken from me, but Jon said the realm needed an heir. Cersei Lannister would be a good match, he told me. She would bind Lord Tywin to me should Viserys Targaryen ever try to win back his father's throne." And it also seems that Cersei wasn't too thrilled about the arrangement either, because in Dance with Dragons, we get the following passage about her wedding day when she's being held captive by the Faith, just after she had confessed. "Yes," Septa Scalera echoed, "and you must feel so much lighter now, clean and innocent as a maid on the morning of her wedding." "I fucked Jaime on the morning of my wedding," the Queen recalled. So, yeah, and things just keep going downhill from the wedding night. Ned asks her, you know, 1,000 other women might have loved him with all their hearts. What did he do to make you hate him so? Her eyes burned green with fire in the dusk, like the lioness that was her sigil. The night of our wedding feast, the first time we shared a bed, he called me by your sister's name. He was on top of me, in me, stinking of wine, and he whispered, Lyanna. So what do you guys think? Was this completely doomed from the beginning? Did anything at all good come out of this?
I don't think so. I think it was pretty doomed from the start, and I don't know if I agree with Jon Arryn on proposing that marriage.
I don't understand why they didn't want to send Jaime to the wall. I feel like what he did was like so unforgivable that you needed to do that. But I guess like just marrying into the family and keeping Jaime on the Kingsguard was just like I don't understand how that was the best idea. other than like fearing Tywin.
And the same way that Aerys had Jaime as a hostage, and John Aaron's already shown he's not opposed to hostages with like Theon Greyjoy and stuff like that. Robert has Jaime right there, and Tywin's not going to do anything as long as Robert can kill Jaime. So I think the marriage is pretty unnecessary.
Well, I think it's a little different. I think, Jaime killing off the Mad King ends the war and finally puts Robert on the throne. Kicking Jaime out for basically doing the right thing by most of the people in the realm's, eyes, or at least the winning side's eyes, makes a little bit of sense. But, the realm did get 15 years, basically peace with the save of the Greyjoy Uprising. That has to count for something, right?
Yeah, I get that, but I feel like they just could have been like, okay, you're off the Kingsguard, just go back to Castle Rock and be your father's prodigy, and I feel like Tywin would have been totally okay with that.
Tywin would have been, over the moon with that. Sends Tyrion off to join the Faith or something.
Yeah, that would have been such a better choice. I don't like the whole, decision process here, and I think Ned thinks this as well. He's kind of just like, why? Why did it have to happen like this?
Yeah, Ned definitely has a low opinion of the Lannisters, and he thinks he kind of thinks it's basically just underhanded tactics that got them the win, basically.
The Lannisters are kind of similar to the Freys. They always work to their advantage, regardless of honor or anything like that.
Yeah, but they're better at hiding how much of dicks they are.
They're also rich dicks. So,
yeah,
they're dicks, but they're rich.
The Freys are pretty rich, too.
Yeah, but they're not, Lannister rich, though.
Well, no one's Lannister rich, I guess.
All these guys are more rich than, most people in Westeros.
How dare you? I have 2 piles of mud at my house.
It's kind of interesting. I had never thought of this. If the Lannisters have so much money, they don't flat out pay off people in all of these wars. They hire mercenaries and stuff, but they could go to Dorne, or they could go to the Iron Islands and say, hey, we'll give you 1,000,000 dragons if you join us. I feel like that would be their go-to solution.
Yeah, but then you'd actually kind of have to find a house who's not really too keen on honor. I don't think a house... okay, well, first off, they wouldn't accept money. They would just be like, fuck you, we're going to take it because we're assholes like that. Hashtag fuck Greyjoys. But you'd have to find a house who'd be willing to put their reputation on the line. Because if you pay out a house to basically fight for you, that house basically loses all self-respect, and because they've been kind of reduced to just your common mercenary. So
I bet Lysa Arryn would do it.
Nah.
I bet they could have paid off the Vale if they promised amnesty for everything and gave her a shit pile of money. I bet she would do it.
Yeah, but you can't really make concrete assumptions on crazy people, and Lysa Arryn is a basket case.
I don't think she's as crazy as people give her credit for. It's not like she's
in love with Littlefinger. That's crazy enough.
I think she's just super paranoid.
Yeah, she's predictable. You know exactly what she's going to do. She's going to try and protect Robin, and I'm pretty sure 1,000,000 dragons would help her protect Robin.
Yeah, but I doubt the rest of the Lords of the Vale would be all right with their Lady Paramount basically being paid out to fight for the Lannisters.
Yeah, I agree with that, because, who's she going to have to fight against? Oh, well, she's going to have to fight against, family members. Now, that might be fine if it's just the Tullys, because she does have a grudge against them, but fighting against, the Starks, I just have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to think of some house that they could pay off. They could pay off minor houses in the north or in the Riverlands, too. Why don't they go to, House Bracken and just throw a pile of money at them or something like that? Or House Dustin, in the north. They have Barrowton. They could just throw a pile of money at Barrowton and have them, go open up Moat Cailin or something like that.
Well, yeah, that's basically what they do with the Freys, at the Red Wedding. The Freys end up getting a lot more lands and titles, so it may not be a big giant pile of money, literally, but it is a form of a payoff that they're getting for committing treason or treachery.
Yeah, but the Freys end up being not so well off in the end because literally everyone hates them, and I think the houses you brought up, the Brackens wouldn't do that because that would just be another jibe the Blackwoods could use against them, and then I don't think the Dustin's would, because Barbary Dustin, sure, she's a real haughty bitch, but she's got some honor to her.
I think one or two of them they would find strategically to pay off, and we don't see that. And they pay off people who are on their side, like Bronn gets a strategic marriage, and they always reward the people who are on their side pretty well. You just never see them, throwing money at people when they have all of this money lying around.
Well, I don't know. Let's also take a look at the Westerlings. The Westerlings ended up pretty well for their, for pretty much sowing the seeds of discontent with Robb.
Yeah.
They got brought back into the fold fairly decently as well. So, I mean, they may do it. It just may not be, giant boatloads of cash. It happens in other ways. It's more like an advancement thing, I think, for their houses as opposed to, a quid pro quo bribe.
Yeah.
Aren't they running out of money as well now, the Lannisters?
I think that's in the show.
That's a lie in the show.
Oh.
Yeah. In the show, they make it like the Lannisters run out of gold, but in the books, the Lannisters are still very well-to-do.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that could be, because how much of that money, though, is actual, liquid money? They've loaned a lot of that out to the crown, so probably a good chunk of their wealth is, held by debt to the crown.
You have to bring into factor, the amount of just gold mines just in the Westerlands and you have, the trade from Lannisport and all that, so I think they're still pretty solidly in the red.
And they show it when they raise the army in the Westerlands after Jaime's army gets crushed. They hire a pile of sellswords, and you can't hire them with promises. You got to pay them up front. So they obviously have some large amount of money. I don't think they're dead out. I think in the books they're still very, very rich.
All right, and let's move on. And actually, this was kind of hearkening back to something that we mentioned prior, that Cersei aborted some of Robert's children. She ends up having 3 children, as predicted. 286, Joffrey is born. 290, Marcella is born. And 291, Tommen is born. As we know, she and Jaime did have a woman cleanse her of any of the children that she was impregnated with by Robert. Is that sort of a form of treason, considering it's a potential heir to the throne? If it occurred before she was pregnant with Joffrey?
Oh boy, now we're talking about abortion.
Well, no, it's just if it's treason. If it's treason.
Yeah, I wasn't asking
it's treason
if
if it's murder, but I don't want to get into that.
I think it's only treason if the king finds out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's something that's probably not written out because it's something that they don't expect queens to do. But I'm sure it's not looked good upon in this world.
I think it would bring into question, people would question her reasons as to why she did it, if it ever came to light. And then that would just be a rabbit hole in itself.
I think she has plenty of excuses that she could make to get away with it. She could be like, I was afraid I was going to die in childbirth, or something like that.
Yeah, but do you think that they have those in Westeros? Do you think that makes sense?
True, because the queen's primary job in their society is literally to make heirs. And if you're aborting heirs, that's not really a good concept of a queen to the society.
I think in most societies, even in the real world, it would have been the case of saving the heir rather than the queen, if it ever came to that. So, I guess not.
Yeah, but as far as the realm knows, she's already given Robert 3 babies by this point, right? So
yeah, but look at Aegon the Unlikely, that whole thing with they had all those kids and they went through all of them until Aegon was king. That was a lot of people to go through, so I think more is better. It would be weird if Cersei just came out and was I had to get rid of my child, or if that just came out, it would have to be a maester or somebody that was oh well, she was sick and she lost the baby. It would be that kind of.
It's not like she has a maester on her side.
That's true. She does have Pycelle, so.
Yeah.
But I doubt, since Pycelle's mostly Tywin's pet, I doubt Tywin would be too keen on the idea of his children having illegitimate children to put on the throne.
Is he Tywin's pet? I thought he was definitely Cersei's.
Nah, Pycelle's always been Tywin's man. That's how he got Aerys to open the gates to King's Landing. Like most people in the Westerlands, he was Tywin's bitch.
That was prior to Cersei being in King's Landing. I think after she got into King's Landing, she was definitely in control of him. Because when we're in the war councils with Tywin, and he's got this information, he's not getting it from Pycelle about the inner workings. He doesn't know what's going on in King's Landing, and he would if Pycelle was his confidant. I think he's definitely working for Cersei at that time. Maybe back in the war, Tywin paid off Pycelle or something to open the gate, and he is sympathetic to Lannisters as a whole, but when it comes to an individual person, I think he's definitely Cersei's.
I think he might just be loyal to whatever Lannister is closest at the time.
Well, with the exception of Tyrion. I mean,
no one
likes
Tyrion.
Yeah, but no, I'd say Pycelle is definitely loyal to the Lannisters in general. If he has to choose between Tywin and Cersei, I would say it's probably whichever one of them is closer at hand at the time. You know, for the most part, Tywin was pretty much absent after Robert took the throne. It would be him looking out for Cersei, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. After a few years of marriage, Stannis grows suspicious of the children's parentage, and he and Jon Arryn begin their investigation, which ultimately leads to the death of Jon Arryn and Stannis fleeing to Dragonstone. And this is kind of where we start off the beginning of Game of Thrones, where the royal family's traveling to Winterfell. Ned gets named the new Hand of the King. Joffrey gets betrothed to Sansa. Jaime ends up tossing Bran from the Broken Tower to ensure his silence on what he witnessed. And do you think it's reasonable or even logical for Cersei to suspect Sansa being the younger, more beautiful one who's going to cast her down at this point in time?
I think everything's just been going so well for Cersei at the time that she's not really thinking of the prophecy, but it definitely comes up later on when everything's starting to go to shit.
I don't think that Cersei thinks that she's old yet. Like, I feel like she's thinking it's further into the future, at this very moment type thing. Maybe once Jaime pushes Bran off the roof, she kind of is thinking about things again because she's obviously, like, nervous and paranoid, but I think, like, upon going up to meet the Starks, she's not concerned yet.
I'm surprised that she even allows Joffrey to get betrothed to Sansa. I think that if you're Cersei and you know that some younger lady who's beautiful is going to be your end, you would, like, you would marry Joffrey off to, like, the ugliest girl you could find. You like just to make sure, right?
Well, I feel like it.
So basically, she should have betrothed Joffrey to Shireen. The kid with grayscale. That one will never be more beautiful.
Poor Shireen.
Poor Shireen.
Don't put her through that.
I love Shireen.
No.
That would have been incest as far as Robert knows. So, I mean, you can find someone else ugly. I mean, if you're like you're making somebody a queen, let's make it somebody that's pretty average looking, right?
Well, I think that this is also Robert's doing.
Oh, House Frey.
I think that this is I feel like at this point Robert still has a lot of control over Cersei. Like, indirectly, Cersei does do, like, some things in the background, as the women in Game of Thrones tend to do, but there's that point at the end of the book where he slaps her in the face. Like, he is gonna get his way throughout most of this time that we see them together.
I definitely feel like that this is Robert's decision. He is going to keep through it, even if Cersei, like, nags him the entire time. But when it's more like private circumstances, like with Lady's execution, I think he's more willing to concede to her when he hasn't already put his word forward that this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a case of, like, it's just easier to make her happy, and he can do it, and he can do that for her, like, with Lady and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like you would see Cersei hating Sansa in private more than she does. Because Cersei doesn't particularly hate Sansa, she just treats her like shit because she's a Stark.
I think Cersei just kind of hates everyone just a little bit.
I think Cersei's just paranoid of everybody.
I don't know. That's a good question regarding Sansa and Lady, and actually that's a good lead into what I was going to go over with next. Cersei has a real issue with Sansa and the direwolves. The queen shuddered. There's something unnatural about those animals, she said. They're dangerous. I will not have any of them coming south with us. At this point, Sansa still is pretty young, and even if she didn't think, she was more beautiful at that point in time, I mean, facts are facts. Cersei's just going to get older, and Sansa's going to get older as well, and, she's going to get more beautiful as time goes on, because she's still a child. She still hasn't, hit womanhood at that point. But on the return trip, when Joffrey gets attacked by Nymeria, and Arya runs off and sets Nymeria free, and then she gets found by Jory and brought before Robert, they do have that whole meeting, which results in Lady being put down. Is it a reasonable concern for her to not want to have the direwolves brought to King's Landing, or is that just? I recall like one of the earlier podcasts that covered this chapter where people were just saying it was completely petty and completely, self-serving to have Lady put down. Do you think that's the right of it, or do you think she thought no, this is a dangerous animal that could pose a legitimate threat?
It makes sense to maybe just send the wolves back north because a large capital city is no place for a giant predator. Actually killing the animal instead of simply sending it back is definitely a petty.
So a large capital city is no place for a giant predator like dragons.
Well, when you have dragons, you can make as many rules as you want because, fuck you, I have dragons.
Okay, good point.
You're not going to argue with them when it comes to that.
I think that this is a case of Cersei asserting her dominance over Ned because she sees that Robert is like all buddy-buddy with Ned, he's the hand of the king, and then we get Cersei just being like, oh, this is a great opportunity to show that, hey, I'm the queen, I'm better than you, I can make shit happen for you.
Did anybody else hear her glitch out just then?
Yeah. I heard her.
Oh.
It was like a remix. Welcome Skrillex to the podcast.
Oh god, I don't remember exactly what I said. I said that I feel like
You're basically saying she was establishing a sort of pecking order.
Yeah, exactly.
I think she was just being
Serving
cruel. I agree. Like she did feel threatened because she was kind of seeing that Ned and Robert were kind of being buddy buddy, like you said. So I think she did want to assert her dominance. But I feel like there's a mean streak in Cersei, and she definitely went further than she should have. She could have just sent them back.
Yeah, I agree.
You could say she's the alpha female in the wolf pack.
Moving on.
After that lead balloon, let's move on.
Oh, come on. It wasn't that bad.
And then we also get some of the difficulties between the king and queen's marriage, how they argue over punishment on what happened to Joffrey, and how Cersei forbids Robert to enter the melee. And then we also get some insight into the level of abuse when Ned's talking to her in the Godswood. Robert's face was dark. I'm sorry, when Ned is recovering from being wounded in the streets and wakes back up. Robert's face was dark with anger. How many times must I tell you to hold your tongue, woman? Cersei's face was a study in contempt. What a jape the gods have made of us two, she said. By all rights, you ought to be in skirts and me in mail. Purple with rage, the king lashed out a vicious backhand blow to the side of the head. She stumbled against the table and fell hard, yet Cersei Lannister did not cry out. Her slender fingers brushed her cheek where the pale, smooth skin was already reddening. On the morrow, the bruise would cover half her face. I shall wear this as a badge of honor, she announced. Wear it in silence, or I'll honor you again, Robert vowed. And Robert doesn't even seem like, upset or feeling sorry or even bad about it. All he really just says is, oh, that really wasn't all that kingly of me. Down the line, when Ned's talking to her in the Godswood, he touches her cheek and he asks if, Robert had done that before. And she replied with, once or twice, she said, shying away from his hand. Never on the face before. Jaime would have killed him, even if it meant his own life. So has Jaime's presence, maybe been keeping some of Robert's more abusive tendencies in check all these years?
I don't know. I don't think he's abusive.
I don't think he's general abusive. I mean, there are these instances where Cersei has egged him on and challenged him because Robert's very much still thinking he's still in his prime at points and still the big man in charge. So when she kind of jabs at this open wound that she feels like she is stronger than him, that's when he kind of just lashes out. I don't think he's just generally abusive. These are the rare instances where Cersei just kind of pokes the bear.
You guys mean like she's not Robert's not long term abusive for the entirety of the time, but he is abusive in those moments, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
he doesn't
I feel like he's just annoyed with her more than anything. That then he is like, oh God, I'm gonna smack you around. I think he's just definitely more of a fine, whatever, fuck off.
Yeah, he doesn't have abusive tendencies. He has a rage problem, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's an anger issue.
But he's not like a long-term abuser. He's just a very ragey person.
Ours
I feel
is
like also
very-
he's just like, I mean, like obviously like Robert and Cersei's marriage is like not good. Like I feel like they rarely talk to each other. That Robert is just
You don't say.
yeah, like it's just awful. Like, and I don't blame Cersei for being upset about all of this. She is kind of in a way a victim of being in a shitty marriage.
Shouldn't she be mad at Tywin about that?
I think she is a little bit, but she also still wants to please Tywin.
Yeah, she kind of has this conflict of what she wants to do with her family duty, as we kind of set up before.
I don't really feel like anyone is really happy about that marriage who was actually in it. Because Jaime's not happy about the marriage, Cersei's not happy about the marriage, Robert's not happy about the marriage. The only person who I think is actually happy about the marriage is Tywin, and that's just because his grandchildren get to sit the throne.
Oh, that's true. His ambition to have his daughter with the prince, that didn't happen with Rhaegar, got fulfilled when Robert took the throne.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the end of that particular marriage. Robert gets killed by a boar while hunting, and from A Clash of Kings, Cersei explains what happens to Tyrion. When Lancel saw that Robert was going after the boar, he gave him strong wine, his favorite sour red, but fortified 3 times as potent as he was used to. The great stinking fool loved it. He could have stopped swilling it down any time he cared to, but no. He drowned one skin and told Lancel to fetch another. The boar did the rest. You should have been at the feast, Tyrion. There has never been a boar so delicious. They cooked it with mushrooms and apples, and it tasted like triumph. I know this sort of sounds terrible, but considering the marriage, is it wrong that she's so happy about being a widow? I mean, is this kind of like akin to, someone in the modern era getting out of just a particularly bad marriage and out celebrating their divorce?
I definitely feel like the relationship between Cersei and Robert is kind of aligned with, you guys know the movie Chi Chi Bang Bang? How the king keeps trying to kill his wife the entire time, but keeps putting on this facade. I think like that goes for both of them, where they both would have been fine if the other just kind of kicked the bucket, because then Robert's like, oh, finally, no one to nag me while I'm fucking my whores and drinking my wine. And then you have Cersei, who's finally like, oh, I get to do what I want to do.
So almost kind of like she's paid her dues and, here's her just desserts or just rewards.
Yeah, I guess that's how she would look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's by no means a good marriage.
Do you guys think she should have done something different with Lancel at this point in time? Like make him a squire to another person in the realm, send him away from the capital, or just, have him offed?
Something other than fuck him?
Probably, yeah. I would definitely maybe grant him like an quote-unquote honor as being like, a herald, someone to speak for the king. Definitely fucking your cousin is not a politically advantageous thing.
Tywin married his.
Okay, well...
It's true. That's true.
Touché.
Yeah. And it worked out well for him, so...
Yeah.
Let the reason against incest be stricken from the record. Go for it, I guess.
So, when she's on trial for, not buggery, for incest, because she was banging Lancel, doesn't that mean that the Faith would have equal problem with Tywin?
I don't think it was incest. I think it was just adultery.
Yeah, it was adultery, because I think the cousin thing is okay.
Yeah.
Just
brothers and sisters, no. Cousins, yes.
You get my approval for one specific type of incest. All the others, no.
Let it be known from this day.
Let the decree go out from here.
Well, I mean, you can still
bang
marry
your
your cousin.
Let's rejoice.
Did you know that you can still marry your cousin in like 36 states or something like that?
Holy shit, are you for real?
No, I'm serious. It's like a really high number or something like that.
I'm pretty sure at this point in time, all the royal families in Europe are cousins, and they've just all been marrying each other. So.
Oh God, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
At this point, we don't really need them to have keen minds anymore, so we can be fine with that.
I've heard in Iceland that they have a database, because they have such a small population and small gene pool, they have like a database where you have to, before you marry somebody, look up and see how closely related you are, so that you're not
Oh boy.
Oh God.
unknowingly marrying your cousin. Ugh.
What on earth is double cousin marriage?
What the hell? What is double cousin? Is this like polygamy but with cousin?
Might be like Utah or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
See, I don't want double cousin marriage to appear on my Google search history, so if anyone else wants to...
I'm gonna look it up.
Sorry.
I've actually taken one for the team.
Double first cousins arise when two siblings of one family reproduce with two siblings of another family. Oh, okay.
That's not like genetically horrible, but
It's still
relationship-wise, it's like, that's kind of fucked up.
You know, speaking of genetically horrible, that must really fuck up the Human Genome Project when they have to deal with people from those states where that's a common occurrence. So get it, we've taken samples from 86 people and we've gotten 3 sets of genes. What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Strike
Oh my
those
God.
states from the record, guys. We gotta do this again.
Just imagine being a child in that situation and being like, oh, so this is my uncle and my aunt, and they're also... I just don't even know what to say because I couldn't describe that.
For a second, I thought you were saying, like, just imagine banging your cousin, and I'm like, well, I'm not too sure about that.
Oh my gosh, no.
Oh,
Just
man.
accept it.
Much
No,
like
no,
incest, just accept it.
No.
Oh god.
I'm not going to accept the idea that some people's family trees look like a fucking Christmas wreath. I'm not going to accept that at all.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh, man.
Scott, oh my god. Well, have you guys seen the World Book? Have any of you seen it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
It
have
has,
it right
like,
next to me, actually.
The whole Targaryen line is just like a bunch of lines everywhere, and like it's so confusing.
Oh my god. It's like, we have brothers marrying sisters, uncles marrying nieces, and we've yet to see a mother marry a son, but we're hoping.
No, we're not.
I didn't say we were, I meant the Targaryens.
That explains why that book that Ned had to read through was so ponderous.
Oh man, it just kept going round in a circle.
It says see page 38. Okay. Oh, okay.
Well,
I read that again.
Have you
Back
guys
to page
seen?
5. Okay, there's the next family. What? See page 38. Back to that one. Okay, I read that before.
It's like one of the choose your adventure novels.
Okay, so then we have the power struggle that happens, and which results in basically Ned being tossed in jail and ending up confessing his crimes on the Sept of Baelor. Cersei and Varys' plan was to allow Eddard to take the Black, but Joffrey had different ideas. My mother bids me to let Lord Eddard take the Black, and Lady Sansa has begged mercy for her father. He looked straight at Sansa then and smiled. And for a moment, Arya thought that the gods had heard her prayer, until Joffrey turned back to the crowd and said, "But they have the soft hearts of women. So long as I am your king, treason shall never go unpunished. Sir Ilyn, bring me his head." Do you think that this kind of really screws her over with the faith of the Seven from an early on standpoint, that, you know, down the road it costs her later on when they bring charges against her?
I don't think they're calling back to a lot of these mean, cruel things that she's done. I think they're more concerned with the actual crimes.
I don't know why they had it in front of the Sept of Baelor in the first place. Well, I think it was because they thought Joffrey was going to pardon him. But
Yeah.
it is Joffrey, and he has, like, cut up a cat. So at that point, I'd be, like, calling off all bets on predicting what he's going to do. So I probably wouldn't have taken it to, like, basically the Vatican.
Well, I think a big part of it was that Ned was supposed to be confessing his crimes and confessing his sins in front of the gods to kind of come clean sort of thing. And it was kind of like a prearranged. It was almost like a show. If you really look at that, it was, for Ned to publicly say, "Hey, look, I was wrong. Joffrey's your rightful king." The Septon was there. He kind of went along with it and, set Joffrey up like, "Oh, the gods, are merciful. What say you, Joffrey?" And he was just like, "Yeah, the gods might be merciful. I'm not." It kind of seems like the Septon was aware of what was going to happen. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, does it damage her credibility that the church was told, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. We want to do this, and, it's going to look really good." And then just things got out of hand later on when she's telling them some things that they're not buying into what she's saying?
There's multiple changes in church leadership between that time. They get like a yes man put in after the riots kill the other Septon, and then the High Sparrow is completely disassociated with the previous church leaders. So I don't know if he'd even have heard it from them.
It's the execution of a major Lord of the Realm. I think they would hear about that.
they'd know that she had executed Eddard Stark, or that Joffrey had him executed, but they wouldn't know that she had been planning with the Faith prior to that to have him pardoned. It would just look like they had decided justice on the spot, which they did.
Okay, so no negative impact.
I don't think so.
No, don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. Cersei then later on calls for Tywin to come to the capital, but instead she gets Tyrion, and they immediately begin a power struggle. Why would he inflict you on me? I wanted him to come himself. She crushed Lord Tywin's letter in her fingers. I am Joffrey's regent, and I sent him a royal command. And he ignored you, Tyrion pointed out. He has quite a large army. He can do that. Nor is he the first, is he? So does it seem like Cersei, in spite of, attaining the rank of pretty much the highest level that somebody can aspire to, isn't being taken very seriously?
Yeah, it calls back to power lies where people think it lies. That theme to the whole series. So even though she has the most power by law, that she doesn't actually have the most power. It's other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's still getting pushed around by Tywin and what he wants to do, and him kind of... I think he's also worried that, he needs to keep her in check because of Ned's death. Tywin making sure that Cersei doesn't have that much power, also, makes Cersei just more angry, that she thought that she would have all this power, but she doesn't.
Yeah, it's kind of like that riddle that Varys tells Tyrion. The king, the rich guy, and the priest all tell the guy with the sword to do something. Right now, Tywin is the guy with the sword, and the law is telling him to do something, and I'm sure the Faith is agreeing with that. And I don't know, Littlefinger could be the rich guy or something, but not in this specific instance are all three. But it's that the person with the sword is the person who has the power to choose.
I think Tywin's still the rich guy in that example.
Yeah, he's the rich guy and the guy with the sword.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Cersei ends up taking other lovers, hires on the Kettleblacks as guards. Tyrion also ends up bribing them and ends up getting a bunch of double agents, not only in the Kettleblacks, but also in Lancel. And he ferrets out that Grand Maester Pycelle is giving information to Cersei and tosses him in the black cells. Cersei really sees, supporting staff of how she was trying to manage things taken out from underneath her, and Tyrion sending Myrcella to Dorne to win the support of House Martell. Is Dorne really a good place for Myrcella to be at? There is a history of Martells wanting to kill the Lannisters or get revenge on Tywin for what happened to Elia during the war.
Yeah, I think that Dorne is a horrible place for them to send her, considering the Martells really hate the Lannisters. But they don't really have any choice, otherwise they'll have the Martells openly rebelling against them.
I think it's kind of like a peace offering, hey, here's Myrcella. We still like you guys. You get a daughter of the queen here. It's great. I mean, it's probably not the best decision for Myrcella, but it might be good for keeping the peace in a way. I mean, at that point, we don't really know about Dornish master plan or if there is one.
And they switched Rosamund and Myrcella anyway, so she's not in any danger.
Well, that was the last one. Come on.
We can build off of prior ones.
True, but this also kind of ties back into the prophecy. Gold is going to be their crowns and their shrouds, and Dornish law permits women to rule. Doesn't that give Myrcella sort of an avenue into attaining a crown?
I suppose.
Maybe I'm an idiot, but when I heard golden crowns, I was thinking they're golden hair, not actual crowns. I guess I hadn't realized until this point that it's actually literally crowns.
I think it can go either way. I feel like the prophecy will, when it all ends, we'll see, it meant their hair, or, it meant that they were all, royalty, a queen or a king at one point.
The prophecy doesn't specifically say that the kids have to die. All it says about them is that they're gonna have golden crowns, and then eventually they'll die because they'll have golden shrouds. But it doesn't necessarily say that they'll die before Cersei. Only that, and when her tears have drowned her, that
It does.
then the Valonqar. So it doesn't necessarily mean the death of her children will make her sad. It could just be something completely different, and that's why I'm hoping Tommen and Myrcella live till the end, because I love those two.
Doesn't it say she outlives them though?
No, if you go back to the quote up there, it just says, "The old woman was not done with her, however. Gold shall be their crowns and gold their shrouds," she said. "And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands around your pale white throat and choke the life from you."
So it implies it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen.
It doesn't necessarily say that they're gonna die before Cersei.
When else do you have a shroud aside from like a funerary shroud?
When
No,
you're
he's-
mourning, maybe.
Like they're saying that like the kids will die eventually and have shrouds, but just because Maggie says it first doesn't mean that they're going to die before Cersei does. But I don't think so. Is there anything else that would make Cersei cry? She doesn't care about anything but her kids. Enough
She
to cry
doesn't
about it.
necessarily even care that much about them. It's more about just kind of like the power they give her. I mean, sure, she'll be upset, but
I think that she cares about her kids.
She's obsessed with her kids.
I don't know. Maybe she'll think Myrcella is dead if Rosamund gets killed, but maybe Myrcella might be alive.
So she just kind of gets word that the body double gets killed, but she thinks it's actually Myrcella, and that's close enough to her to fulfill that little tick mark on the prophecy.
Yeah, because she's just searching out for things in the prophecy where we are currently in the books.
Well, that means if theoretically, like, you know, they have to attain a level of royalty, that means Tommen has to die first before Myrcella.
Yes. Or, well, it wouldn't happen anymore, but I was going to say maybe the Dornish plot also kind of associates with that.
Those sneaky Dornish.
Never trust a Dornishman. I'm not racist.
Solid racism here.
Well, let's keep in mind it was Tyrion who sent Myrcella off to Dorne. And also, as Stannis starts to approach the city, Cersei actually attempts to get her youngest child, Tommen, to safety and entrusts his care to Lord Giles. And Tyrion ends up sending Sir Jacelyn Bywater to ambush him on the way and take Tommen into custody and then go on to Castle Rosbury and keep the boys safe. And in return, he promotes Jacqueline to Lord Bywater of Rosby. And is this really like a necessary step for Tyrion to take? I mean, Cersei's already sending him out, already sending him, you know, to another place for safety, and he's just going to have his guy instead of Cersei's guy, you know, hold Tommen?
I think mostly it's just a screw you to Cersei, but Rosby is a fairly rich keep, I think. So it would be advantageous for him to have his ally there for future.
Lord Giles is... When he dies, there's like the whole argument over who's going to inherit his ward or the crown. So Rosby is also one of the key places that provides King's Landing with food. I bet Tyrion's just like, in case of siege.
Yeah, I think regardless of who's in charge at Rosby, they're gonna, whether it's Cersei's pawn or his pawn, they're still gonna support the city. So that's why I think it's still mostly just a screw you to Cersei. But it is helpful to have another powerful lord at his disposal.
Do you think this is sort of a bit of evidence to Cersei that, you know, Tyrion is actively working against her interests and the interests of her children?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she even accuses him when they're having dinner. A Lannister always pays his debts, she said. You've been scheming against me since the day you came to King's Landing. You sold Myrcella, stole Tommen, and now you plot to have Joffrey killed. You want him dead so you can rule through Tommen, which is actually kind of funny because after Joffrey dies, that's exactly what she does.
Yeah. I would rather have anyone rule through Tommen than Joffrey. She is definitely suspicious of Tyrion. I think deep down she knows that he has more cunning than her, and that her low degree of cunning can't really move against his.
Yeah, it's a bold claim for her to make at this point that Tyrion's out to kill Joffrey with little to no evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of her influence from the prophecy. I feel like ever since she heard like the Valonqar is going to kill her, she just assumes it's Tyrion, and that everything he does is a plot to, like, against her kids, against her, that he's eventually going to kill her, and you know her hatred towards him, like from the very beginning.
And so this kind of petty screw you move is just reinforcing that notion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on to the Siege of King's Landing. Cersei holds up with the other noble women in the Red Keep. Sir Ilyn is present to execute them, just in case the royals are defeated. She gets really drunk. There's an assassination attempt on Tyrion when Sir Mandon of the Kingsguard attempts to off him, which gets foiled by Podrick. Cersei ends up calling Joffrey back away from the walls to the Red Keep, lowering the morale of the city defenders because she's concerned for his safety. And then Tywin ends up saving the day when he shows up with a Tyrell host, and they end up winning, which ultimately leads to the betrothal between Joffrey and Sansa being broken, and a new one made with Margaery Tyrell and Joffrey. And Sir Loras also gets elevated to the Kingsguard. And Lord Tyrell is also placed on the small council. Tywin takes his place as Hand of the King. Then he starts picking out suitors for Cersei to make another basically political marriage. And his candidates are Willis Tyrell, but he also considers Balon Greyjoy and Oberyn Martell. There's this great quote from Tywin, which I think really just sort of solidifies the notion that, you know, his children are just game pieces to be moved about. The Tyrell heir would be my choice, Lord Tywin concluded. But if you would prefer another, I will hear your reasons. You know, considering Cersei's already endured one marriage out of duty, you know, shouldn't she have to not endure another one? Shouldn't she at least be allowed to pick who she wants to marry instead of having it prearranged for her? If she wants to at all?
Not according to Tywin.
Can you imagine her married to Balon Greyjoy?
I can't think of a couple I would hate more.
Oh my gosh.
It'd be awful. I mean, I feel for her that, like, she's constantly just being, like, thrown around, like, oh, we could put you here, we can put you there, I'll hear you out on your reasons, but it probably doesn't mean anything. I do feel for her in that kind of sense, that she's just basically a pawn to Tywin, not really his child.
Like, when Tywin finally gets there, he's like, okay, your husband's dead. Waste not, want not. Let's find you a new match. Put those ovaries back to work. All right, you've been too lenient for now.
Oh my god.
It is very Tywin of him to be like, okay, time to go on to the next political match to ingrain the Lannister power.
And it is pretty hypocritical of him, too, because he never remarried either.
Yeah, but Tywin doesn't really give a damn if it's hypocritical. Tywin do what Tywin do.
I think that Tywin also, like, here, he's very much thinking like a military strategist. Like, he's got all these people fighting against him. How can he get the peace back together so they can just rule Westeros and just be happy and go about their lives like they had been doing for, like, the past 15 years? And he sees that, oh, Cersei, she's still here, she's still a woman, she's able to give children, let's marry her off and let's take care of one thing. Like, I feel like that's how he's viewing her right now, and I don't like it, but...
You just imagine Tywin with all his commanders just sitting around the map table. All right, we'll attack them here, and turns over to Cersei. Wait, why are you here? Oh, aren't you supposed to be married yet?
Isn't this the one moment where Cersei, like, she pleads with him, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I think she's like, no, not another marriage, and I actually really felt for her.
Yeah, she kind of stands up for herself, and she's like, no, I did that once, I'm not doing it again. But ultimately she ends up caving.
I think that has to do with her constant dissonance with trying to do what Tywin wants for her to do, and constantly trying to, like, be like more like Tywin, but then also, like, she has her own wants and own things. I mean,
yeah, well, it is a reoccurring theme for her, like, throughout the entire book, like, you know, Tywin's decisions versus her decisions and whatnot. Luckily enough for her, she never gets to go through with any of that. A little bit later on, they get the news of the Red Wedding that Tywin helped to carefully plot out and craft with Lord Frey and Bolton. When word gets back to them, Joffrey makes a statement to the small council, and it kind of reveals some of his more, you know, base beliefs. After Tywin says they can offer terms to some of the Riverlanders to restore the peace. Joffrey says, quote, "They should all be put to the sword," Joffrey declared suddenly. "The Mallisters, the Blackwoods, and Brackens, all of them. They're traitors. I want them killed. Grandfather, I won't have any generous terms." The king turned to Grand Maester Pycelle. "And I want Robb Stark's head, too. Write to Lord Frey and tell him the king commands. I'm going to have it served to Sansa at my wedding feast." And, yeah. Yeah, and as the conversation goes on, Tywin tries to explain to his grandson that he needs to show some forgiveness to, you know, basically get the realm back into one piece as opposed to being shattered in that. And Joffrey just kind of bounces back with, well, Tywin really didn't win any wars. He was afraid of Aerys. It was Robert who won all the battles and killed Rhaegar, while Tywin was sort of cowering in Casterly Rock. He finishes off his little rant with, "A strong king acts boldly. He doesn't just talk," which Tywin ends up sending Joffrey off to bed. And we get the following where, you know, Cersei may have been sort of trying to shift some of the blame for Joffrey's mentality to Robert. Tywin says, you know, "There's a long league's worth of difference between willful and stupid. A strong king acts boldly? Who told him that?" "Not me, I promise you," said Cersei. "Most like it was something you heard Robert say." The part about hiding under Casterly Rock does sound like Robert. Tyrion didn't want Lord Tywin forgetting that bit. "Yes, I recall now," Cersei said. "Robert often told Joff that a king must be bold." "And what were you telling him, pray?" I did not fight a war to seat Robert II on the Iron Throne. You gave me to understand the boy cared nothing for his father. Why would he? Robert ignored him. He would have beat him if I'd allowed it. That brute you made me marry once hit the boy so hard he knocked out 2 of his baby teeth over some mischief with a cat. I told him I'd kill him in his sleep if he ever did it again, and he never did, but sometimes he would say things. It appears things needed to be said. Lord Tywin waved 2 fingers at her, a brisk dismissal. Go. She went, seething. Not Robert II, Tyrion said, Aerys III. Is this that same kind of you win, the Game of Thrones or you die mentality that she kind of has gotten from Tywin's example, just watered down to the 3rd generation? Or is this she birthed the psycho and there's no helping it?
I can't really see it because she's blaming Robert for Joffrey's attitude, but we've seen blatantly when it comes to Robert after he's beaten his foe, he's offers them a hand back up and have a drink with them, as we can see with the Greyjoys. And even Tywin then has his idea of when terror isn't being used as a weapon, it's basically useless at that point. So I don't really know where Joffrey's getting the idea of just killing all the River Lords. And I think it's just him being psychotic.
I think that Joffrey is a product of, first incest, so he already has a bad start. And then we also have a father that doesn't really care about Cersei, and her child looks exactly like Cersei because it's not his. And Robert doesn't give 2 shits really about him except for getting him to be prepared to be king. And Cersei's so concerned with doing what she needs to do. She wants to have more power. She's in a loveless marriage and she hates that, and she's brooding, and it's there's just so much that sets up Joffrey for him just being a crazy person here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have bad parents, but not all of that leads to, cat skinning and stuff like that. I think it's pretty indicative, and probably because of incest, like you said, Casey, that I bet in his brain he's got some imbalance. I don't think he had any shot.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of look at the three kids. You got Joffrey, who's nuts. You got Marcella, who seems pretty level-headed, and you have Tommen, who also seems pretty level-headed. I think it's just genetics there. You got the bad. It has to do with something in his genetics that he's just there's something wrong.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
That's my green light for incest, I guess.
Yeah, says the guy who
2 out of 3.
Incest.
Got a 66% success rate, so.
All right, well, let's move on to the Purple Wedding. This is where Joffrey finally gets his just desserts.
Finally.
Oh, what, did you want him to live longer?
No, I said finally.
This was the best.
He should have died earlier.
The day I read the scene was the best day of my life.
Really? Would you like to read the quote? Would you like to read it now?
Oh, no. It's fine.
I'll read it, because that is satisfying. Joffrey began to claw at his throat, his nails tearing bloody gouges in the flesh. Beneath the skin, the muscles stood out hard as stone. Prince Tommen was screaming and crying. Okay, I kind of feel bad about that one. He is going to die, Tyrion realized. He felt curiously calm, though pandemonium raged all about him. They were pounding Joff on the back again, but his face was already growing darker. Dogs were barking, children were wailing, men were shouting useless advice at each other. Half the wedding guests were on their feet, some shoving at each other for a better view, others rushing for the doors in their haste to get away. Sir Meryn pried the king's mouth open to jam a spoon down his throat, kinky. As he did, the boy's eyes met Tyrion's. He has Jaime's eyes, only he had never seen Jaime look so scared. The boy's only 13. Joffrey was making a dry clacking noise, trying to speak. His eyes bulged, white with terror, and he lifted a hand, reaching for his uncle, or pointing. Is he begging my forgiveness, or does he think I can save him? No, Cersei wailed. Father, help him! Someone, help him! My son, my son! Tyrion found himself thinking of Robb Stark. My own wedding is looking much better in hindsight. He looked to see how Sansa was taking this, but there was so much confusion in the hall that he could not find her. But his eyes fell on the wedding chalice, forgotten on the floor. He went and scooped it up. There was still a half-inch of deep purple wine in the bottom of it. Tyrion considered it a moment, then poured it on the floor. Marjorie Tyrell was weeping in her grandmother's arms as the old lady said, "Be brave, be brave." Most of the musicians had fled. One last flutist in the gallery was blowing a dirge. In the rear, the throne room scuffling had broken out around the doors, and the guests were trampling on each other. Sir Adam's gold cloaks moved in to restore order. Guests were rushing headlong out into the night, some weeping, some stumbling and retching, others white with fear. It occurred to Tyrion belatedly that it might be wise to leave himself. When he heard Cersei scream, he knew it was over. I should leave, now. Instead, he waddled toward her. His sister sat in a puddle of wine, cradling her son's body. Her gown was torn and stained, her face white as chalk. A thin black dog crept up beside her, sniffing at Joffrey's corpse. "The boy is gone, Cersei," Lord Tywin said. He put his gloved hand on his daughter's shoulder as one of his guardsmen shooed away the dog. "Unhand him, now. Let him go." She did not hear. It took 2 Kingsguard to pry loose her fingers, so the body of King Joffrey Baratheon could slide limp and lifeless to the floor.
Applause, applause.
Yay! The crowd goes wild. Yay!
Oh no, I meant for his reading, not for.
I mean, it could be for both. I mean, I would definitely be one of the people shoving people away to get a better view at the death of Joffrey. So
My favorite line here is men were shouting useless advice to each other. I like that.
That's called politics, Casey.
That's called everybody decided to be a doctor at the same time.
I love Elena just being like, "Oh, be brave, be brave. I planned this whole thing. Be brave. It's fine."
I kind of feel like if this happened during, modern days, people would be taking out their cell phones, like the ones that are pushing to get a closer look, to be like,
"Oh God,
put up YouTube,
Instagram that shit."
Oh God.
Hashtag worst wedding ever,
The sad thing was that would actually happen.
Yep. It's very
Oh God.
I had a friend who made a Snapchat account with the picture of Joffrey from the show when he's all dead.
What?
Or not Snapchat, Tinder.
Tinder.
Oh.
He got a lot of swipes.
That's
Oh my God.
It was wonderful.
I like how you can tell that Sir Meryn isn't a doctor when he just shoves a spoon down his throat.
What is
It's just
that
like,
gonna
oh,
do?
let me just dig out whatever's in there without any damage to the throat. Pycelle is probably like shuddering somewhere, like that's not how you do it.
It's like, oh, I'm just gonna open his throat. Oh God.
Where is Pycelle?
Meryn smash!
I wonder if he walked by a plate and he was like, "Let's see, should I use the fork, the knife, the spoon?"
I could imagine
I guess the spoon.
see him staring at the knife for just half a second before going, what am I, stupid? And then just grabbing the spoon.
Oh God.
So anyway, Tyrion ends up on trial for regicide. Sansa makes a hasty exit from King's Landing. As his trial is going absolutely horrible because apparently almost everybody who he trusted either betrays him or doesn't show up, Tyrion demands a trial by combat. Cersei points out he does have the right, and she names the Mountain as her champion. And Oberyn Martell steps forward and agrees to champion Tyrion. And then we get this line. "The uproar was deafening. Tyrion took a special pleasure in the sudden doubt he glimpsed in Cersei's eyes." Is Cersei in that moment possibly thinking that Tyrion is the Valonqar and the curse is finding a way to get him out of being executed for regicide?
That would be very nice, but I don't know.
A bit too nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cersei's just always paranoid. Even though that she knows that, her decision is, the best that she can possibly make, she's still doubting it because of the prophecy.
She also might be thinking, if this fails, there's all of these other different ways to kill Tyrion.
Oh, that's true. Anyway, a little bit later on in the cells, Tyrion's wondering, prior to the trial by combat, and if the Mountain is triumphant, Doran Martell might well demand to know why his brother had been served with death instead of justice. Tyrion had promised him. Dorne might crown Marcella after all. Realistically, do we think that this is part of the Dornish master plan to, now that they have Marcella, to make her queen and then sort of take control by marrying Marcella and then ruling that way?
It sounds too simple to simply be called a master plan.
I personally don't think that the Dornish really intend to crown Marcella, because while that may fly in Dorne, there's no way that the rest of the Seven Kingdoms will accept that.
Not even if Tommen's dead?
No way.
even if like Dorne had the option to crown Myrcella, they wouldn't, because they wouldn't want someone with Lannister blood on the throne, because Lannisters.
Yeah, I think that they just want to get rid of all the Lannisters.
Well, at that point, it would revert to Stannis by law, right? Because all of the claimants who are Robert's natural children are dead.
Yep.
Yeah, but I feel like they would be like more alright with just a Baratheon than a fucking Lannister.
See, I kind of disagree with that. I think that there's enough people who have picked a side. Any puppet that they can put in there is better than having to deal with what sort of justice Stannis might unleash on them. So I think they might back, actually, Myrcella in the event that Tommen dies. Because look what Stannis did to Davos. Do they really want to do that, or do they want to roll this dice and, see if they can win their bet after all?
Well, what crime would Stannis have accused them of, then?
Treason? Not supporting him in the first place?
It's worth noting at this point that the small folk have heard from Stannis that Myrcella and Tommen and Joffrey are bastards of incest, so I think public opinion, just on the whole, among the lords and among the small people, has been turned against those children. And if they have the choice between, one long shot or another long shot heir to the throne, that they're probably going to go with the one who's not related to Cersei.
Or with just like the state that the kingdoms are currently in, I wouldn't be surprised if Dorne is just like, okay, we're out of here, have fun, we're going back to pre-Darren days.
I also think that they think that they should, even after the war with Robert's rebellion, I feel like they still think that they're rightfully the ones that should be on the throne with a Targaryen husband, was it Elia? I think it was Elia. Yeah.
Elia Martell.
Yeah.
Wed to Rhaegar.
Yeah. So I feel like they just want to get back to what they had, and they feel like that they were slighted, and why didn't Robert Baratheon marry a Martell after this?
That's a good question, actually. Elia was dead, so that's not happening. And,
yeah.
So there might not.
He's a bit dead.
Maybe there wasn't enough. Unless everybody in Dorne was just angry about it and was like, nah. But
there isn't a suitable lady in the Martell house right now, because Doran and Oberyn don't have a sister.
He might have been able to keep Dorne in check if he married an Ironwood and have the Martell's rivals have that threat of, hey, we have the backing of the king, so you better stay in line or else we'll become lords paramount.
I was just about to say, you were asking how old Arianne is. I think she's 25-ish, which would mean at the time of the rebellion she was 7 or 8, which it's not unheard of to betroth an adult to a kid that young, but it's not good for a king.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't have done that.
Especially a king who wants heirs right now,
Yeah, they kind of needed to get to work immediately because they didn't really even have a prepared dynasty because they were just jumping in, so they needed a secure heir. And strategically, I don't think Dorne brings very much to the table. They got some desert, they got around 10,000 men. Meanwhile, your other option is the Lannisters, who have money up the ass, a daughter your age who can be wed to you. Compared to the Martells, the Lannisters are a better choice. Now, whether that's compared to other houses in the realm, then that's a completely different idea.
Arianne was born in 276, which makes her 25 as of right now, 23 when the book started.
Yeah, she was born in 276, and Robert's Rebellion occurs in 282, and he marries Cersei in 284. So that would have made Arianne 8 years old at the time Robert married Cersei. So she was too young, and she would have been at least, probably 5 or 7 years out before being able to secure the realm. So yeah, that probably wasn't much of an option.
Yeah, agreed.
Apparently Jon Arryn did his homework. Phenomenally enough, Tyrion's trial by combat doesn't go his way. Pretty much the Mountain ends up winning that one. Should Cersei have actually just had Tyrion killed on the spot? Look, trial's over, off with his head.
She maybe should have, but it's Cersei. She's not really well known for her calls of judgment. And so I think she's basically then just kind of using this chance to kind of gloat over her hated sibling. Ha, you're fucked. I'm in charge now.
Tywin might have an influence over
Tywin probably wants to keep an air of decorum.
Okay, so it wasn't even her decision of when he's going to get executed.
Probably.
Mayhaps.
I was going to say that.
God.
Yeah, you're fucked, I'm in charge is what she says to Jaime, too.
Okay, and then speaking of Jaime, he actually does return shortly thereafter from being a captive, and he's slightly changed. In addition to... Well, he's not going to be giving anyone a high five anytime soon. Let's put it that way.
No high ten.
Sorry, that was poor.
He's not much one for applause.
What is the sound of one hand clapping? Sir Jaime, can you answer?
Oh my God.
He's not only physically screwed up, he also starts to spur Cersei's advances. When they're in the White Tower of the Kingsguard, he just flat out turns her down. He also disagrees that Tyrion would harm Marcella or Tommen. He's also not convinced that Tyrion killed Joffrey. And it almost kind of seems that Cersei in the scene really does think of Jaime more like a spouse, but just simply due to social circumstances, they can't be together. With Jaime pulling back, is this sort of like her rock, some sort of foundation of stability that she's had in the past that she can't lean on anymore, causing her more stress?
That could be a contributing factor. I mean, she's relied on Jaime for so long to be kind of there for her. And now that moving against her or just kind of away, that she's feeling more and more alone.
Does she actually really love Jaime, or is it, sort of like how Tywin manipulates his children? Is Jaime just somebody that she manipulates as well?
I think that she loves him.
Genuinely?
I think she loves him, but it's a very selfish love. She loves him so far as it pleases her to love him.
I feel like it's a narcissistic thing, because he's basically the male version of her. So it's kind of like she loves him, but it's not real love.
She loves herself, therefore she loves him.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's from, but there's that line where it's like, "Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me."
Oh God.
That's Cersei. She's like, "I'd totally fuck me."
And she does. No.
At least 3 times.
Yeah, Tywin gets killed on the crapper by Tyrion with a crossbow, and then Cersei is awoken in the night, and on her way to the Tower of the Hand, she thinks to herself, "No, that cannot be. This is not the way a lion dies." The queen felt strangely calm. She remembered the first time she had lost a tooth, when she was just a little girl. It hadn't hurt, but the hole in her mouth felt so odd, she could not stop touching it with her tongue. Now there's a hole in the world where father stood, and holes need filling.
Too bad Lancel's gone.
Wow. Oh.
But she does have the kettle black, so...
They fill her holes.
Oh my God.
That was what I've been trying. That was certainly what I was trying. Yes, thank you. Thank you for including this.
As long as the YouTube's already going to hate me, I may as well make all the...
At least you tried to be subtle about it, but you just...
Subtle!
Tact. Oh God.
Here I am trying to, make an emotional connection. Like, she's lost that father figure. She's lost, her only parent that was ever a guiding light and an influence on her life. Should have known better.
I was about to agree with you on that. I actually felt a little bad for her here. Like, she has a hole in the world where her dad used to be, and that's sad. But he wasn't a good dad, and she's not a good person, so...
It's interesting that both in this scene, where she feels strangely calm at the death of Tywin, it's almost parallel to how Tyrion feels when Joffrey's dying. Like, he feels strangely calm, and, he walks over to the chalice full of, which has a little bit of evidence left and dumps it out. But neither of them seem to be freaking out like other people would expect them to be.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like they're more just like coming to terms with the death that either is happening or just happened.
It's also kind of like when Sansa sees that knight killed in the tournament, and she's strangely calm while she's watching that, and that's her first experience with death.
I mean, has Cersei experienced death like firsthand? Maybe with like Joanna. How recently has she been near a dead person?
She pushed that girl
there was
down
her son.
True, but that was her son.
Ned.
Yeah,
give a rat's ass about Ned, though.
Didn't want him to die necessarily because of the
because it didn't benefit her, though. It's not like she has a gaping hole where Ned was. That's another idea.
God. Oh God!
Fan
Don't
fiction.
imply that.
Okay, so let's move on to something that's not at all creepy. This is where Qyburn shows up.
Hey!
And he actually removes the crossbow bolt from Tywin and preps the bodies for the Silent Sisters. And Cersei's less than pleased that Pycelle hadn't done this task. When Qyburn asks about Shae, the woman that was in Tywin's bed and had been strangled, Tywin's hypocrisy is really apparent, and Cersei is really not accepting basically the obvious truth that's like staring her right in the face, but she's more than happy to accept Qyburn's excuse that he offers up. Perhaps his lordship was questioning the girl about her mistress, Qyburn suggested. Sansa Stark vanished the night the king was murdered, I have heard. Do we think that Qyburn, over time, is filling in that role vacated by Tywin?
Thank God you said roll.
Yeah,
Because that could have devolved so poorly. I don't really think Qyburn fills Tywin's role, because Tywin was more commanding. Qyburn is more just kind of giving her subtle advice, while Tywin was like, you're marrying this person.
I think that Qyburn may, fill some of that role, but not...
Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking.
Oh, God.
Claire?
I think he just becomes somebody for her to kind of rely on, somebody she sees as, he's in my corner, so I can trust him. And that's why I don't think she looks at him as an equal in the sense, or even looks up to him the way she did with Tywin. I think it's just one of those things where it's this is somebody who understands me and who is willing to do things for me.
So he becomes kind of like a friend and a confidant.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say friend, though, but definitely a confidant.
Yeah.
We can move down to when she suspends payments to the Iron Bank of Bravos, because at that point, once Tywin's dead, she really starts running the show, so to speak. Jaime kind of falls out of grace because he's not really stepping up. He seems to be changed from his experiences traveling with Brienne. Kevin Lannister flat out refuses to be the Hand of the King because basically she wants to hold on to power. And one of the things that she does is she suspends payments to the Iron Bank of Bravos, which causes them to start calling in their debts all over Westeros, as well as refusing any new loans. And ultimately they end up backing Stannis, who agrees to honor the debt that's owed by the crown. She ends up using the money that she saves not paying back the Iron Bank to build a new fleet.
No.
Does Cersei simply just not have a good mind for running the realm, or is this just a result of the situation, with the loss of her family members and just the chaotic political situation that just sort of has her off her game?
I feel like to be a good leader, you need to kind of look at all different aspects. And I think Cersei kind of has tunnel vision in a sense. It's only oh my gosh, so how can we ensure that nobody kills us? How do I protect my kids? And that's it. She doesn't look at anything else is anybody starving? Do I owe anybody money? No, she doesn't look at that.
Yeah, it's like the person playing chess that only plays one move ahead. I gotta protect my queen, so I'm gonna move this guy in front of my queen. That's all she ever does, where everybody else is thinking farther ahead.
One of the big things I think first that she spurns the Iron Bank is primarily because she has that Westerosi aristocracy air about her. As far as I can tell, the Iron Bank isn't really even run by high noble families. It's just run by those who are wealthy and who have worked hard. So she may look down at them as more just kind of peasants, bankers garb. I feel like she feels that she's better than the Iron Bank, and that the Iron Bank should wait until she's ready to pay the debts, not before.
Yeah, pretty much she says as much, that they'll wait until the rebellion is over.
Mm-hmm. Then the Iron Bank's just well, how about the rebellion goes a little bit longer?
And in Stannis' favor, yeah.
Yeah.
Cersei also ends up hatching the Dornish murder plot, sending Sir Balon Swan to Dorne to deliver supposedly the head of Sir Gregor, and also carrying a letter asking Marcella to be returned to King's Landing for a visit and inviting Prince Doran to take a seat on the small council. His real mission, though, is also to invite Prince Trystane to come back with Marcella and then kill him along the way during an ambush, which she plans on blaming on Tyrion. Is this actually a clever move, or just sort of a desperate attempt to get Marcella back?
It's stupid.
Sounds petty more than anything.
I feel like she's just trying to hold on to whatever she has left. She's you see her slowly just start to devolve at this point.
She doesn't even think so if this does happen and we do kill Trystane, and even if we do blame it on Tyrion, you just think that the Dornish are going to be oh, okay, thanks, thanks for killing one of ours, thanks. They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, good point. And also another serious blunder that she makes that in no way has any repercussions down the road for her. The Faith of the Seven refuses to bless Tommen, but Cersei wins back their favor by cutting a deal with them. The Faith forgives 1 million gold of debt that the crown owes them. In exchange, they're permitted to bring back its militant orders. Cersei expects the Faith to march north and take care of Stannis as he's worshipping the Red God. And just exactly on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how would each of you rate this as a bad move?
I'd rate it at like a 9. I mean, it's like, how much do you guys trust ISIS? Because I don't really trust them that much, and that's basically.
Oh my god!
Answer that.
Well, we probably can't keep that one in.
I think it's a solid 10.
Yeah, it's a solid 10.
Yeah,
It's pretty boneheaded.
Yeah, so right up there with worst move ever. Okay. She also allows Qyburn to conduct secret experiments in the Black Cells, which, actually, to be fair, Qyburn's kind of become a useful means for her to make troublesome people disappear.
Yeah, I like, as fucked up as he is, I like Qyburn.
Really?
Yeah, he's actually kind of one of my favorite characters, because he's just kind of this Frankenstein character just in the background.
No, like literally since he invents Robert Strong, or
Literally, because he like reanimates a corpse. That is why he is endeared to me with the necromancy.
one of the people that ends up being one of Qyburn's. We don't really know exactly what he's doing down there. We just get these rumors. But one of the people he has or experiments on is Felice Stokeworth, who got manipulated in attempting to kill Bronn off. Bronn ends up killing Lord Stokeworth, but before he does, he ended up revealing the plot to Bronn. So Cersei sends Felice to Qyburn to prevent her from revealing her scheme to anyone else. So
I bet all these experiments are all very ethical. It's all just for the betterment of medical knowledge.
He's making new makeups.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for this family.
I don't. Felice just annoyed the hell out of me. The only one I actually feel like pity for is the one I can't remember their name. Lawless, yeah. I feel for Lawless.
Well, ultimately, Cersei actually ends up trusting Qyburn with information about Maggie the Frog, and we got a good quote here. The small folk used to call her Maggie. Magi? Is that how you say it? The woman would suck a drop of blood from your finger and then tell you what your morrows held. Blood magic is the darkest kind of sorcery. Some say it is the most powerful as well. Cersei did not want to hear that. This Maggie made certain prophecies. I laughed at them at first, but she foretold the death of one of my bedmaids. And then Qyburn a little later on asked, "Do you still grieve for this friend of your childhood?" Qyburn asked, "Is that what troubles your grace?" Melara, I can hardly recall what she looked like. It is just, the Maggie knew how many children I would have, and she knew of Robert's bastards, years before he sired even the first of them. She knew. She promised me I should be queen, but said another queen would come. And actually, at this point, she leaves out the younger and more beautiful part. Worth mentioning, I think, that Cersei makes the mistake of indicating it's a younger queen, and Maggie said it would be one younger and more beautiful, not necessarily a queen. She said, "Queen you shall be until one younger and more beautiful comes along." And Qyburn correctly guesses that Cersei wishes to forestall the prophecy, and sort of shows her hand asking if it can be forestalled, and Qyburn assures her that it can be. When she asks how, he simply replies, "I think your grace knows how," which leaves Cersei thinking of what she told Maggie all those years ago. "If she tries, I'll have my brother kill her." Do you think that's a possible way out of the prophecy for her, to having either Jaime or Tyrion killing either the younger, more beautiful one or the Valonqar?
I mean, if you kill everyone, then, I mean, there's not going to be very many people left to fulfill any prophecies, but...
Unless they come back as whites.
Oh, boy.
There's so many
true.
people that can, like, fulfill this prophecy that I feel like if Jaime and Tyrion just went around killing a bunch of people, it wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, now that you say, like, younger, more beautiful doesn't associate completely with, it doesn't have to be a woman, that, like, just even broadens the scope so much more.
Do you think Jaime or Tyrion would even kill for Cersei at this point? I mean, Tyrion pretty much, I think we can rule out as doing Cersei any kind of favor
He
intentionally
would
whatsoever.
kill Cersei, but for her, I don't think so. And at this point, Jaime's like, I'm not really too, like, keen on killing people anymore now that he's kind of had his handful with all this new information that's come to light, his travels with Brienne, and actually just kind of learning how to be an actual nice person instead of an asshole. Well done, Jaime. Good job.
I don't know about that. I mean, he had to lose his hand to come to that revelation. It's not like he woke up one day and was like, oh, whoa, I've been kind of a dick all these years. Try not being a dick anymore. It basically took him to the point of, like, not being able to kill anyone.
He's down a hand, but he's up a great personality now. He's a good guy now.
He's down
or
a
just
hand.
a real pirate. Up a heart. Yeah, he's got a 1-up.
And his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Jamie is the Grinch.
Confirmed.
Is Brienne Max then?
She can be Cindy Lou Who.
Oh my god, yes. Someone get some fan art with that.
Oh my god.
Yes. The Faith down in King's Landing hated incest a lot, but the Jamie who lived just west of King's Landing did not.
Are you Dr. Seuss now? Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, let's keep going. So eventually, Cersei, through manipulations, gets Marjorie arrested. Cersei then begins plotting to have Marjorie framed for treason and adultery by having Osney Kettleblack lie about relations with her and her cousin. Marjorie gets arrested when she visits the Sept by the High Sparrow. Cersei fakes concern, visits the Sept to let Marjorie know she'll try and get her released. In reality, she's working to get Marjorie found guilty. Cersei herself gets arrested when Osney Kettleblack, who is being tortured by the Faith, reveals the truth that he lied about Marjorie and basically spills the whole plot put forth by Cersei. She gets charged with a bunch of crimes, tossed in a cell, and while she's in prison, Kevin Lannister returns to King's Landing, takes up the Regency, Orain Waters takes off the fleet. Cersei realizes she's going to need to have a trial by combat in order to survive this whole ordeal. She sends following message to Jaime. Come at once, help me, save me, I need you. I have never needed you before. I love you, I love you, I love you. Come at once. And Jaime totally ignores her plea and just kind of crumples it up, and I think he tosses it in a fire, if I recall correctly. Cersei ends up confessicating.
Confessicating.
All right, let's try English 2.0. Cersei confesses to fornicating with Osney, Osford, Osmond Kettleblack, as well as her cousin Lancel, but denies having any involvement in King Robert's death or the previous High Septon's death. She's also careful to be clear with the High Septon she never strayed from her marriage bed while Robert was still alive, and denies charges of incest and adultery with her brother, and that her children are not Robert's. Faith gets a little bit more lenient with her. She's allowed to have one whole visitor per day from this point on. She also finds out about the injury to Marcella. She also learns the death of Aerys Oakheart of the Kingsguard, and she lets Qyburn know that it's time for her new champion, Sir Robert Strong, to appear. And then the Faith force her to just make a walk of atonement from the Great Sept of Baelor to the Red Keep. Prior to the walk, she thinks to herself, they think that this will break my pride, that it will make an end to me, but they are wrong. She gets shaved bald, stripped naked, and made to walk the whole distance, and breaks down emotionally prior to getting there, suffering insults, filth being flung at her, and all sorts of demeaning situations. She has a sort of breakdown, and did anyone actually feel sorry for her at this point, or was this more of a kind of you get what you deserve sort of thing when you read this in the book?
It wasn't as satisfying for me because the way George writes it, it is actually very traumatic. And I was just kind of wishing like she had just been killed instead or something. But I mean, it is a form of reader's revenge. Like, oh, finally, she's finally getting something. But I don't know. I wasn't as satisfied as I probably thought I would be.
I feel similarly, like, I feel like, oh my god, she's finally getting what she deserves, this is great, but at the same time I was like, oh my god, this is like the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody.
This is fucked up.
Yeah.
Claire, thoughts?
No, pretty much the same. Like, even though at this point I pretty much hated Cersei, like, I felt bad for her, but at the same time I was still kind of like, oh, well, she hasn't learned anything, but still I felt bad for her. It was pretty demeaning.
I must be a horrible person because I was like cheering the whole time I read this. I was so happy.
I think it kind of starts out that way, like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, you're getting your just desserts, and then because you see it from her point of view and you realize just kind of how harrowing it is of an experience for her, it's almost, you know, it's a little bit too much, even though she's done all the things she's actually been accused of, basically. Okay, and then finally when she gets to the Red Keep, we learn that Sir Robert Strong is ready to go. So he's either been reanimated or I don't know, plugged in and charged up. I'm not exactly sure how Qyburn's managed that one, but he's managed it. At the end of Dance, Varys kills Kevin Lannister, so this actually may see Cersei restored to the Regency should other events work out in her favor. And now it's on to the theories. So I put a poll up. Did everybody vote on the poll? I assume you did?
I did.
Yup.
Yep.
And
Let's do the younger, more beautiful queen.
okay, so we got Sansa Stark being 57%. Do we agree? Disagree?
That was my vote.
That was my vote.
That was your vote?
Yeah.
Nope.
Who'd you
Oh,
vote
okay.
for?
Danny.
Oh, you. Because you just read Dance, didn't you? You bastard.
I mean, they hardly even talk about Sansa. I think I heard about her in a Tyrion chapter, but I'm not sure because I skipped the wedding.
God.
Okay, well let's start with Sansa. So for those of you who voted for Sansa, what was your reasoning behind it? Like, why do you think she's the one that fulfills the prophecy?
Mostly just kind of wish fulfillment, because I really just want her to have a happy ending.
Yeah, I think that she's already kind of like indirectly kind of killed Joffrey, so I feel like it's only fitting that she kind of indirectly kills the rest of his children, or her children. I don't know if that'll actually end up happening, but I feel like she's definitely going to like take more power into herself and kind of resolve things. I feel like that there's going to be a time in the next couple of books that she'll be in some position of power and ride everything, but I don't think that she'll end up being queen. I still think that she'll end up on the Quiet Isle with the Hound. But yeah.
Okay, I did not vote for Sansa as being the younger, more beautiful one because I don't think it's her. Nothing against her. I think she is going to continue to do better and to gain more power and to sort of use like what she's learned from Littlefinger, and I think she's going to be a little bit more of a valuable piece for Littlefinger for a little bit longer. Jack, you said you voted for Daenerys?
Yep.
Why did you vote for Daenerys?
So, I voted for Daenerys because I think George likes to subvert expectations when he's writing. He gave us the idea that Daenerys would be the conquering queen in the very start of the series. And then as the series goes on, and when she introduces this Valonqar stuff, he's already done a whole pile of other stuff to kind of obfuscate the plot. He's adding all sorts of new stuff to, I think, to distract you. I think it would be very like him to bring it back to what you originally thought was going to happen.
You just imagine him just sitting at his desk. Aha, you thought it was going to be Daenerys, so I added some stuff, and then you thought it was going to be Sansa, but it was Daenerys the entire time.
I mean,
You short-sighted idiots.
I mean, pretty much. I think that the reason a lot of people think it's Sansa or Marjorie is because when Cersei is thinking about the younger and more beautiful queen stuff, those two characters are very prominent in the story, where Dany is maybe fell out of prominence and she's tied up in Slaver's Bay and stuff. But I think it would be very like George to provide us a couple of red herrings to try and distract from the main plot.
Well, I think Cersei thinks it's Marjorie. I don't know if she necessarily thinks it's Sansa, so that's why I kind of think that it'll be Sansa that ends up being the younger, more beautiful queen.
Sansa's the more beautiful queen.
Okay.
Yes.
I kind of disagree. I think it's Marjorie. I was one of the 9% that voted in for Marjorie as opposed to the 27 that threw in for Daenerys.
Is that why in your notes you put Queen Marjorie?
Yeah, that's totally why I put
Marjorie?
Queen Marjorie.
Oh, you
Exactly.
biased.
I may have been, trying to throw that in there to see if anyone else, took the bait, but no.
Subliminal messaging.
Well, part of it is I think a lot of this seems to be a self-fulfilling prophecy for Cersei, as we've kind of mentioned, like she's making it happen. And the more she seems to go against Marjorie, the more it seems to be costing her in the long run. The Tyrells are already responsible for removing Joffrey, so she's already taken that away from her. Now, Cersei thinks it was Tyrion and Sansa, but she's making a bunch of guesses, but she's getting all her guesses wrong. So I think that's where it's kind of going, and that's why I think it's Marjorie. Marjorie's also taken Tommen away from her because she's slowly sort of winning over his favor and getting him away from her influence. And as Tommen grows up, he's going to turn into a teenager. And the first thing that happens when you become a teenager is everything that your mom wants and your mom likes is suddenly the least coolest thing ever.
Oh man, emo teen Tommen. I could see that. God, Mom, I just want to play with my cats. You don't even know me. Dyes his hair black.
Oh my
He barely
Cersei's
knows
nightmare.
subplots.
The only thing I do give to like it being Marjorie is that I feel like this prophecy is one of the only ones that we'll see that like it's actually going to be quite literal. I feel like everything else that we're going to see is not. It's going to be like, oh, we see how this works out in the end. It makes its way back. But I feel like this one is more like, obviously this person is the younger, more beautiful queen. It's not going to be like some kind of metaphor.
All right, so the 2% of people who thought it might be Brienne of Tarth, just complete.
She's beautiful on the inside.
She's younger, yes, but
It's inner beauty.
inner beauty.
Yes.
5% thought it would be Ariane Martell.
Yeah, she might marry Aegon or Fagin, but I doubt he's gonna stick around much longer as soon as Dany kind of shows up.
Why do you like Sansa?
I'm just like one of those people who like the first time I read the books, I was just like I just completely like identified with the Starks. So I'm just like, please, like we need something. Like we need something. We're so desperate right now.
So you're George's primary victim, I see.
Yeah, yeah. In my head, like the perfect ending to the story would be like Arya comes back to Westeros. She's there with Sansa and Jon, and it's just a bloodbath of all the people that wronged them, basically.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Mm.
That would be the best epilogue ever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
You don't think
George
it's gonna
R.R.
be
Martin is
hot pie?
writing this.
Okay, yeah, so let's go over the Valonqar. And the most popular candidate for the Valonqar is Jaime Lannister. Like, a landslide victory, 74%. And I have never disagreed with the results of a poll more than Jaime Lannister. Did anyone...
How
What-
dare
what-
you?
one or more of you must have voted for Jaime Lannister. Who voted for Jaime Lannister?
I voted Jaime Lannister.
I did.
Jamie.
All 4 of you voted for Jaime Lannister?
I did not.
Oh.
Okay, well, let's go with the 3 of you who voted for Jaime. Why did you vote for Jaime?
Because it's just... Alright, well then you're probably gonna just like disassemble it with like George R.R. Martin logic. But it's kind of the... Oh, this is... It's so poetic how the man she loved is going to be the one who ends up killing her, the one she least expects.
Yep. And he's our younger brother, technically.
Yeah.
Going back to what I said in the other theory cast with Jaime and the trial by combat that we think that Cersei's going to have with the Faith, because they're probably going to try to execute her or something. But I feel like Jaime's going to end up either fighting for Cersei or fighting for the Faith by their choice. Whatever the outcome ends up being, it'll end up being that Jaime either loses and kills Cersei, or he'll win for the Faith, which in turn kills Cersei. That's my crackpot theory there.
Jack, do you want to go why you didn't vote for Jaime Lannister?
I went with Tyrion.
Okay, Tyrion, who got
Wait.
3%.
Yeah, I was the one vote for Tyrion.
I'm picturing your reasoning is with George R. R. Martin again sitting at his desk. Aha! You thought it was going to be Tyrion, so then I made more sense that it might be Jaime, but it was Tyrion all along, you idiot. He's just like he's just giggling to himself as he's just typing on that old computer.
You know, we see that Jaime doesn't love Cersei anymore, really,
Mhm.
but I think it's a big jump from not loving her anymore to straight up murdering her. He might not love her like a wife anymore, but I don't think he's anywhere near like freaking murdering her. I think that's really a drastic jump. Whereas Tyrion has already stated that he's out to kill Cersei, so Tyrion's going to do it, and I'm going to be the only one who's right.
Okay, so Tyrion's got motive and willingness, and Jaime doesn't really have either,
Yep.
in your opinion?
I can't believe I was the one person that voted for Tyrion being the Valonqar.
We'll get
It's
into
too obvious, man.
Oh, it's exactly what you wouldn't expect.
He's too short. He can't reach her throat.
Oh my god.
Got
Yeah,
Shay.
He needs like a step stool or something, or he needs like Sansa to give him a boost.
Oh my god.
Yeah, if you support the prophecy by standing up.
I kind of want to know what Scott thinks, because
Okay, well, here's the thing. The prophecy says his pale hands are going to wrap around her throat. That's hands, plural. Jaime's got like one hand, and the way...
Oh.
And it's not like you can strangle somebody with like Like, it implies, like, if that's how she's going to get, like, strangled to death with two hands. And it's not like, I mean, I suppose if he's putting her in,
if he's got that gold hand, it can help press down.
Yeah, but that's gold.
Yeah, how about that, huh?
But that's not a pale hand.
It could be a pale gold.
It doesn't have to be a pale hand.
Pale gold.
It doesn't say pale hand. It says the Valonqar shall wrap his hands around your pale throat.
Yeah,
okay.
Pale throat, not pale hands.
Even still, I don't see him like strangling. I mean, how is he going to do that? Like, just on a mechanical aspect, I don't think that's going to be it. Plus, I don't really, and I do kind of agree with Jack. Like, I don't think he has it in him to kill her. It's just not something he'd do. I mean, this is the mother of his children. This is basically, up until a couple chapters ago, the love of his life. I just don't think he's too good of a candidate to have it happen.
So who do you think is the Valonqar?
Before we get to my choice, I do want to go over the guy who got 9% of the vote, which was Tommen. Mr. Korb posted, I have my own ridiculously concocted theory that it's Tommen after he dies and comes back as a white. Every instance we see of whites killing or attempting to kill somebody is through strangling. I picture it going down as Tommen having died somehow and Cersei is unable to pull herself away from his corpse. By the time the magic zombie making cold weather will have spread down to King's Landing, and so Tommen will rise and kill the nearest available victim, which will also just happen to be his own mother, who is so overcome with emotion to see him alive again that she won't stop him from choking the life out of her. That actually got 3 votes, because if Tyrion got 1, and that's 3%, then yeah, that got 3 votes. A couple people agreed with that. Thoughts on that?
I find it really interesting. I don't know if, like, the cold will get down to King's Landing, like, that kind of cold will get down to King's Landing in time for whenever Cersei's death is, so that makes me think no, but it's such a cool theory that I like it.
Yeah.
Preston does give a very convincing argument. Oh, sorry, Mr. Korb. Just a very convincing argument for it, but I'm going to have to go with Jamie. Sorry, Mr. Korb.
There's also one that got a vote for Lancel Lannister as well. He's part of the Warrior Sons. Theoden the True was the first, so Lancel could technically be considered the younger brother as he joined after Theoden the True. So that technically means he's part of a brotherhood, so therefore he's conceivably the younger brother, and thus the Valonqar.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I disagree with it, because I think Lancel's going to get killed by Sir Reanimated Gregor Robert Strong. Yeah.
Do you think the Faith will literally have Lancel, skinny-ass Lannister, go up against Sir Robert Strong as their champion?
Yes, because he knows he's right, so the gods will be on his side.
Anything's possible if you have faith.
Well, Cersei's getting away scot-free.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't think they're going to suspect Robert Strong is going to come walking out of, the Red Keep. I think they're just going to be like, all right, we'll put Lancel out there. He's sure, he's at least capable. Because they're probably going to think it's, the drunk member of the Kingsguard or the food taster or whomever. So I think they're going to think they've got a good shot with Lancel winning. And then, haha, surprise. Tyrion got 3%, Stannis got 3%. Any thoughts on Stannis, anybody?
Is he beautiful? No, wait, we're talking about Valentine.
Okay, so Stannis pretty much one good person. And then there was my pick, Loras Tyrell. He's the younger brother of Willis Tyrell, and there's a lot of parallels that go along between him and Jaime Lannister. They're both sort of the top-notch knights of their age. They both joined the Kingsguard to be close to and protect a family member. There's just so many parallels between the two of them. So many that even Jaime reflects that Loras is literally a younger version of himself. Loras, right now, he's injured on Dragonstone because he got sent there by Cersei, just taking it back from Stannis. But once he heals up and he returns, I think he's going to be the one who's going to off Cersei. Because the one thing that Jaime and Loras don't share in common is that Jaime has killed a regent.
Jaime fucked his sister. And Loras isn't too much into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay, so the two things they don't have so far is incest and slaying of kings or queens. So I think Loras is going to be the one who comes back, realizes how badly Cersei's fucked everything over, realizes all the evil-ass shit she's done to his sister, and then things are going to just build up to a point where Loras is just going to be like, you know what, fuck this, you're dead. And I think he's going to do her in.
Become the Queen
Slayer. Is he younger than Marjorie?
He is, but he has an older brother named Willis, who is the heir to Highgarden.
So he's the younger brother. Oh.
He's the younger and more beautiful queen and the Valonqar.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
See, that wraps it up all nice.
All Loris.
So Loris is gonna come back all houndified from his burning, just kick ass, I guess.
Oh, the hunter killer.
Yeah.
He is a younger brother.
Scott, your theory gets totally wrecked when we find out, oh no, Loris lost both his hands in the conflict.
Yeah, if it turns out that Loris ends up, Sir Loris the Stumpy, then yeah. I will completely
What
be
part
like,
of his personality are you referring to? Or the...
Oh god.
Oh.
Oh. I did want to. This wasn't on the list, but I wanted to mention Arya because Cersei is on her kill list.
So Arya gets a sex change, and...
Stop. Well,
She could just
There.
take the face of her
Oh yeah,
little
she
brother.
could just take the face.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Arya as Jaime.
Oh my god.
And
Oh
then
my.
And then Cersei just, oh my god, Jaime, and then she realizes that the one killing her has 2 hands!
Oh god.
So Brienne kills Jaime, and Arya gets a hold of his face.
it's not the
That'd be-
worst theory ever.
Yeah, no, that's actually fairly plausible.
I would like to see Arya come back and start racking up her kill count. I feel like she's sort of...
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like she sort of had a good thing going. Like she was going for the MVP of the series, so to speak, and then she's just sort of dropped off now that she's been in the House of Black and White. So
She kills
You want
Justin.
her to still be...
She kills Justin Massey, takes his face, then comes back to start wrecking shit.
Scott
Well,
wants her to still be wandering around the Riverlands.
And I still want her to be with Gendry, but that's not gonna happen now, is it?
no, I want her to start crossing people off her damn hit list. Like she's
Yeah.
had that hit list since book 2, and other people have crossed more names off it than she has. So
But I think
that,
I think that might just be George like making us an idea of, hey, it's futile to go after revenge because chances are someone might just take it from you. Because I'm betting towards the end, her list isn't going to be worth shit because all the people she was going to kill have already been killed.
What if her kill list is gonna all be killed by other people?
It's a
Yeah,
definite
that's-
Damn, what is
possibility.
she gonna do?
Actually, no, she already killed, what's his face? Polliver? No,
the tickler.
Tickler. She, like,
so.
maniacally stabbed him and screamed and cried and crap.
And she picked off a few people in the in Harrenhal, but they weren't exactly on her list yet. So
And even if like she sticks with the faceless men and stuff, like I'm pretty sure, like the Iron Bank, for example, wants Cersei dead, and it's pretty close by, and just
So it's official. She'll take Jaime's face and then kill Cersei. And then the Iron Bank's just going to like drop Mike.
actually,
She
you know
could
what
take
else?
Tommen's face.
Oh my god, that's fucked up.
I think Jaime's a better guess at that because technically Arya is a southpaw, and Jaime lost his right hand. Arya's left-handed, so that actually would work out a little bit better if Arya shows up with holding a sword. It looks natural because Jaime shouldn't be holding a sword with his right hand, so that would actually make a lot of sense.
She just spray paints her other hand gold.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're done here. We good?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank.
Hey, I have an idea.
oh my god.
Mic drop.
That it?
There goes It Rhymes with Sleek, aka Jack. I want to thank everyone else for joining. Does anyone have any podcasts they want to promote shamelessly before we sign out?
Listen to the Doctor Who podcast if it comes out after this. If it came out before it and you listen to it, you know what the Face of Bo is up to these days.
Yes. Exactly what I was gonna say, without the face of O. But basically, yeah.
Hey, you should watch the Revenant podcast. We talk about beavers, and it's pretty sensual.
Going to be doing the Duncan Egg stories while the TV series is going on. So if people want to sign up for that, that's something that I'm going to be posting a call to arms. I'm going to probably do 3 podcasts on that, just breaking out each of the short stories. So if you pick up Night of the Seven Kingdoms, then you can join in on 3 podcasts.
I would actually love to be on the Duncan Egg podcast when those come around because I really enjoy those because I kind of see them as more of the lighter side of A Song of Ice and Fire. because it's much more of a adventure novel than political intrigue.
Well, with that, thanks for joining us. Look for Vassals of Kingsgrave on not only YouTube, but Facebook, or join us on the website, podcastoficeandfire.com. We'll be under the Vassals of Kingsgrave forums. Feel free to sign up, comment and like, send us money, write us into your will.